Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Thursday, October 22nd. This is the Birmingham Public Schools Board of Education special meeting. My name is Kim Whitman, and I am the president of the school board for the 2020-2021 school year. I welcome all of you attending and watching us through YouTube. This is a live meeting. Again, this is a special meeting that we've called, and again, today is Thursday, October 22nd, 2020. Our first order of business is roll call. So Joan, I will turn it over to you, hon.
Thank you. Trustee Angeloni?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hokumer?
Here.
Trustee Jennings?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee McKinney?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Ross?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Whitman?
Present.
And Trustee Young?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Allow the minutes to show that for this special meeting, all 7 trustees are in attendance. Okay, before we get started, I really just want to kick it off by I'd like to begin by briefly explaining to the community why I called this special meeting just 2 days after our last regular board meeting. That was Tuesday evening. For those of you that were participating or watched, the last board meeting on Tuesday went well into the evening, and in fact, it was 4 hours and 15 minutes long. After the administration went through its presentation, specifically on the reconfirmation of the extended COVID-19 learning plan, we, the board, passed a resolution approving a completely virtual learning option for the middle school that was different than the plan that the administration had originally proposed and that we had approved in September. So despite assurances by the administration at the board meeting that the change voted upon was doable, I contacted administration the following day to discuss any unanticipated problems. In my discussions with the administration, we reviewed what was previously raised and discussed at the board meeting, but what included, 1, the need that we would have to redo the survey that was offered to all middle school parents as to what options for their children they had to choose in light of the change. The second thing that we discussed is the fact that the delay, which would be caused by the new parent survey, would create potential timeline problems in addressing what we've said as complex staffing issues involved in providing for completely virtual middle school option. And the third point, one concern that was not raised and discussed was the fact that such change and the staffing decisions would be made without the involvement of our interim superintendent, George Heitch, who will be joining us on next Wednesday. So I then confirmed with the other board members that there was, in fact, some confusion with respect to the middle school definition and options. And therefore, I decided that further discussion with the full board is warranted to ensure that all board member questions were answered, and that when I call a roll vote for the resolution today, that it is abundantly 100% clear what each of us trustees is voting upon. So before I ask Deputy Superintendent to provide a brief summary of the middle school virtual option that the board enacted last Tuesday or on Tuesday, and how it differs from the plan that had previously been voted upon and presented by the administration in September, I'm going to open it up and ask any board member that would like to make comments before the presentation.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. I'm glad that we called this special meeting because in lieu of some of the confusion that ensued this past Tuesday, I was really pressed to call a revote because I didn't feel that I was equipped or had all of the information that I needed to make a good vote, make a good choice and make a good vote. And this is now an opportunity where I see I'm much more informed, and I feel very grateful that we have this opportunity, and I'm ready to listen to the presentation and take it from there.
I'll add, thank you for calling the revote. I don't know that it will change my decision, but I think that we need to make sure that we're making decisions with all of the information available to us. The reason I chose to vote the way that I did last time was because I was one of the few board members who had the opportunity to sit in on the live stream simulation at middle school. And as a result of that, I felt that a virtual academy would serve our students better. And so when that option was on the table, and I also thought that delaying our start date would allow teachers the extra time that they needed to be able to execute on the plan because they already are working long hours. And so that was the reason that I voted the way that I did in approval of the plan.
Anything else before we move on? Thank you, Nicole. To turn it over to Rachel. Okay, all right. So Rachel, I will turn it over to you and ask you to please share your screen with the presentation. Trustees, you all should have received this today. But again, Rachel for the community is going to share it on her screen.
Sure will. Thank you. Hoping, can everyone see that?
Yes.
I have two screens up, so if I'm looking to the side, it's because of that. So
Rachel, it's actually, I'm sorry, it's actually sharing your presenter view. I don't know if you care about that, but it's showing the screen that you would typically see, not the audience view.
okay.
So if you hold down the Windows key on your keyboard and press the tab key, tab back over to Zoom. You have to watch your screen though.
Windows and tab?
Yep. And do you see Zoom yet or no?
No. Hang on a minute. Let me stop screen sharing just one moment.
If you, I think what happened was you went into presenter view from PowerPoint, but if you go into like presenter mode from Zoom, it should be, you should be able to see your notes without anyone else seeing your notes. Is that right, Dwight?
Sort of like it, no, because she's using the dual monitor, so it's going to give her that difficulty.
How's this?
That's better.
You can share it straight from there. It doesn't matter. It's just giving the previews down the side. That's fine.
I'll go ahead and just do it this way. It's fine. This doesn't include my notes anyway, so we're fine there. I wanted to go back up and just since we are in this view, and I think it'll be easy, easier this way. I just wanted to show none of this information has changed. This is the information that we present at every board meeting, that we wouldn't have updated information to share for tonight because we get our new results in every Friday from Oakland County Health Department. So I'll go straight to our middle school implementation, and I want to pause and just make sure that we land on the middle school plan slide and begin with just reiterating what we discussed on Tuesday evening, which is that the middle school plans continued live streaming, exploration, and implementation really falls into three categories of instruction. One is a webcam on an instructional hub that is directed by the teacher, and that would mean that students who are in a home learning environment would be viewing what is going on through this webcam into the classroom. The second mode of instructional delivery for a teacher in this live streaming exploration involves the use of the Clever Touch board or the document camera, which would then be used on screen. So if someone was illustrating, if a teacher was illustrating a problem, a math lesson, a science experiment, as we saw the other day, they could use the document camera or the Clever Touch board to convey some of those instructional points. And then the third, which we are all most familiar with, most of us are most familiar with, I should say, is the all students, meaning the people who are at home and those in the virtual environment, and those who are actually in the classroom could be connecting on Zoom at the same time. So those are three options. And then a reminder that Schoology is our learning management system platform. And what that means is that all the students would still be able to go there to see what is my homework assignment, how do I interact with my teacher if I'm posting a response to an assignment, and so forth. What I'd like to highlight is that the teacher implementation of those three options under the plan as it's presented is based on subject, content, and lesson as needed, so that an English teacher might choose to employ all of those strategies or just one, whereas a math teacher might say, goodness, I rely on my Clever Touch board daily to work out the problems and show the students or have students work on problems and demonstrate to others. But depending on the day or the content, the nature of the lesson, all of those pieces, any one or all three of those first strategies could be employed that we just discussed. So right now we're just talking about technology strategies. I do want to highlight that BCS, Derby, and Berkshire have the same options for technology. And we also discussed at the previous board meeting that we continue to discuss how this is going in our neighboring districts and schools. And I don't know that we really need to delve into that piece again. I want to really focus on the clarity of our plans for this evening. What I'd like to do next is just talk about what is the actual nature of the considerations that we would need to ponder with regard to Derby and Berkshire. And the rest of what I'll be speaking about this evening, and on each of the slides I've labeled it as such for clarity, is in relation to Derby and Berkshire only. So when we talk about our staffing for returns and posting and hiring for vacant positions, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources works with staff who are unable to return, addresses changes in assignment, and takes a look at what is necessary. One of the things that we've tried to do is work in collaboration, as I mentioned on Tuesday, with our health advisory board meetings, board members, to provide Q&A sessions for teachers who are about to return, so that they can also make informed decisions if they would like other opinions outside of their own health contacts. And so that's another piece that's been taken into consideration. And we will explicitly ask Dean Neforos to speak in just a few minutes, but I want to first just take you through the next piece of why that would be, why the staffing would be the way that it is. So when we look at the middle school, or excuse me, President Whitman, did you want to pause then and ask Mr. Neforos? Because I'm fine either way.
No, I guess I just wanted to, if you could go back, I just want to make sure that in addition, when we voted on September 15th for a November 4th return to middle school face-to-face, it's my understanding that Dean and the whole team, all of you, you started doing that at that point, correct? So this has been going, it is, I mean, it's, you would have done this regardless of what plan for middle school face-to-face. Okay.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
this is in process regardless of, put a date wherever it may be, a face-to-face, right?
Right.
That process began in general terms just because of COVID. And then I know that Dean will speak to this, but with leaves and then some of the regulations that have come out, he's had to advise people of their choices accordingly. But it becomes a little more complex when we start talking about options. But yes, the
Yes.
groundwork was in motion here.
Perfect, thank you.
So when we look at the middle school timeline for Derby and Berkshire, just to review, the information to parents and staff was sent via an email letter on October 15th. And it highlighted the 3 instructional methodologies that would be used for students. It also talked about the fact that parents would have the option of electing their student into the hybrid half-day model, where they would avail themselves of some face-to-face interaction, as well as in the afternoon of the hybrid model, receiving instruction through the live stream methodologies we outlined earlier. And it also gave parents the option to say, no, I don't want my student to go to school face-to-face at all. I'm going to have them be at home, but learning through the live stream model all day, not just a half a day. And that parent deadline for the virtual or in-person intention originally was slated for yesterday, October 21st. And we know that through these conversations that deadline was going to have to change regardless, because until we come to a conclusion, we're unable to put a final deadline on that. But we were very close to the deadline the other day. And then our assistant superintendent, as I mentioned, for HR would make staffing adjustments accordingly. And he will speak to that in just a little bit. And then I mentioned the other evening, and I'll reiterate, that we did look at staff preparation days. And as we have committed to offer all of our staff 2 days of preparation to the hybrid return to learn plans, what we decided is that it would be important to take a look at the calendar in light of the fact that that Friday preceding is a half-day professional development day, and that the November 3rd date is a staff records day, that we thought the staff preparation days should be instead November 2nd and 4th. And so the other evening I did mention, and I'll reiterate again today, our proposed return to the classroom would be November 5th. The schedule is as follows, and it involves 2 cohorts, a cohort in the morning, and this is for Derby and Berkshire, a cohort that would come in the morning if a parent elected the hybrid, and then a cohort that would come in the afternoon. And in the middle of the day, there's scheduled time for lunch for teachers, cleaning and teacher planning. And then the cohorts would flip-flop, as you can see reflected on the schedule.
And nothing, that this slide has not changed since, I mean, it has not changed. So this is the exact same.
This is exactly what you saw the other evening. This is the slide that is new, and I'd love some feedback from you, hoping that as we move forward in explanations, we're seeking to make things more clear. And I want to thank our teaching and learning department, Dr. Ambika Roberson and her team, who sought to help bring some clarity and definition to what does a dedicated virtual program mean, because we got caught a little bit on this, and I thought it would be helpful for us to provide some definitions, and they offered to do that. So a dedicated virtual program means that we would explore the pairing of virtual teachers who wanted to teach virtually for some or all of their day, with students who wanted a virtual environment for some of all of their teaching day. So I'll pause here, because the reason we don't call it an academy, and this got a little tricky the other evening, and I attempted to try and clarify, but I want to make sure we do tonight, that the virtual academy is where there is a teacher and a student who are virtual all day long. And it's a separate entity that we created for the elementary, for example. Whereas what we are discussing is a dedicated virtual program where a teacher might teach all day long virtually in this environment, but not Absolutely. They might have 3 of their classes were where they would be teaching virtually, but then the others might be face-to-face, or maybe vice versa. And the students, however, would then be matched. So when we talk about pairing, we're referring to a master schedule dissection where we would say, okay, who requested to go virtually all day? And on the flip side, who were the teachers who indicated a preference to teach virtually? And we were asked the other evening, and I'll let Dean speak to that again, about how we would go about selecting those teachers in such a case. I do want to pause here because this is a critical juncture, that the other evening when I presented, we discussed the timeline with a November 11th return. And with the special meeting being called, and now we're on the eve of Thursday, there were 2 things that I've gleaned from board discussions, both in prior meetings, not even just this week, but in prior meetings, and then also in light of this proposed timeline that would need to change the date to November 16th. One is that we heard loud and clear that we cannot present options to parents and ask them to make a decision within a day. And so depending on the outcome, if in order to communicate that choice and then survey parents, receive the survey information back, or send the survey and give them a time to make a choice, we at this point, if we were to move forward with this, would need until Monday. And then if you track back exactly to the timeline I discussed, when I believe Trustee Young asked about what was the difference between the weekend or not, and we referenced the time to double check all of those matched teachers with students and look at crossover points and so forth, we landed on 3 weeks. So the 3-week deadline would then be November 16th. Are there any questions about that particular piece?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a couple questions.
Oh,
Sorry, Amy.
That's okay. You go.
So I thought originally the November 11th date, we were going to have to adjust just a couple of days to negotiate the end of the marking period. So would this still fit? Will we still adjust those days so that it would be aligned with the new marking period?
We would need to meet to negotiate that, but yes, what we would need to do is meet to negotiate that the November 16th date would be the start of the new marking period if we were to proceed in this manner.
Okay, and then it was not clear to me the other day that teachers would be doing both. So just for clarification, teachers would be teaching virtually and also in the classroom, which my understanding is teachers do not like to do that, having to go back and forth.
Well, let's pause there. So in this particular model that we're discussing with the other option, the dedicated virtual program, we would be offering the students the opportunity for a full virtual day. But
Okay.
we do not know if the teacher would be able to teach a full virtual day with the scheduling configuration.
So then it would be a student doing virtual school all day, but with different teachers, correct?
Correct, because of the subject areas. But what I do want to clarify, I'm not even sure if this is what you meant, but I think it's a good thing to clarify anyway, is that under this program, though, students who were virtual in the dedicated virtual program would not be interacting with a teacher who was simultaneously interacting with face-to-face students in that same class period. So
Yeah, no, I didn't. No, I didn't think that.
okay.
But Rachel said a different way. So if a parent chooses their student in the dedicated virtual program, like you said, that student will be 100% virtual. If a teacher raises their hand that they want to participate in the dedicated virtual program, there's absolutely no guarantee that those teachers will be 100% virtual, given their subject matter. So for example, if we need a math teacher that needs to be physically in the classroom, that math teacher potentially could have 1 or 2 hours virtual and then have to walk to their classroom to do 1 or 2 hours in person with their half of their classroom, as well as live streaming the other 50% of their class.
That is a potential. Obviously, we would try to the greatest extent possible to minimize that, but without having survey numbers to know the match or the pairing, we can't ascertain how many of those cases there would be. But yes, there's potential for that to happen. There's also potential for a teacher to end up with a full virtual schedule. We don't know because we don't have that data.
And the
And
teacher.
what is the survey results right now? I'm so sorry, Kim.
No, go ahead.
As of the initial survey results that came back, I believe I had last checked, but again, we've had a whole nother day. I believe 23% at one of our middle schools and 33% at another wanted full virtual environment. And I would ask at this time if another member of Central Leadership Team has more up-to-date, or 33 and 24, sorry, thank you. 33 and 24 are the two percentages from the middle school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Rachel, you said 33 and 24?
Each school, it's different.
So-
One middle school, the other middle school.
Yeah, which one's the 33?
I'm actually,
Berkshire.
Berkshire,
is
okay.
it? Okay.
Dr. Roberson put that in the chat function here. That's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that
Okay.
that's not Intel or anything I had.
Rachel, I have a question on the timelining. I know that a couple of teachers referenced, and I know that we've heard just in study sessions and conversations that taking apart the master's schedule is cumbersome, and that my concern is I just want to make sure that we're setting a realistic deadline and timeline for the counselor. From what I understand, the counselors are the ones and in the administration of each of the middle schools who helps develop the master schedule. So I just want to make very sure that we are setting realistic expectation and deadline if this was something we were to explore as it relates to the master schedule.
That's a great question, and I will phrase it similarly, if not the same, to the other evening. This is a Herculean task. We know that. We also know there's been tremendous pressure to not delay that. We have looked at that. It is not our ideal timeline, but yes, we could make it happen and could if we were asked to do so under this timeline that we proposed. In a perfect world, I think you're probably aware that master scheduling takes months at each of our schools to enact. So this, as I mentioned the other day, would take all hands on deck and a complete support system in place to support our middle schools to make that happen. I don't want to make it sound like it just happens overnight. In my professional opinion, it could happen. It would happen with a great deal of effort and sweat and all hands on deck to make it happen. And in a perfect world, in a non-pandemic time, we have lots of time to explore all kinds of things with the master schedule.
I appreciate you clarifying for everyone. Thank you.
The concern I have is I asked pretty much Jen's exact question at the last board meeting. I said, can we do this by November 11th? Can we do this by November 11th? And now we're here with 2 days later with an alternative timeline of November 16th. So I understand that parents wanted more than 24 hours to make a decision, but I am not understanding why that statement was true at the time we voted on Tuesday and is no longer true now. I'm sorry. I'm frustrated. It seems to me, and it might appear to the public, that November 11th was never an appropriate date. And so for those of us who voted for a November 11th start with a virtual, weren't really voting on something that was possible. That's what it feels like.
That's not the impression I want to give. I'm both being honest in my assessment of the stress that it would put on the organization and simultaneously saying it's possible. So it would take great effort. It would be stressful. And yes, we could do that, and it is possible. And I don't think those are mutually exclusive. We discussed the difference between making the deadline the other evening, the Friday before, and I said that would be impossible for us because we would need those extra days. And I'm answering, Trustee Rass's question as honestly as I can, in the sense that I don't think any educator would say any of the timelines to explore most of the plans that have been implemented are ideal. And I don't mean just in Birmingham, I'm talking about during the pandemic. But in light of these challenges, this is something that we could make happen if we were committed to a dedicated virtual program. But it is also something that I'm trying to answer quite honestly, that yes, it is stressful. And we discussed the other evening that we would have to involve central leadership team members to support our middle schools in order to have that happen. And we felt, and I'll go harken back to my comments the other evening, we felt like there had been a lot of discussion that merited lifting up for both the trustees and the community to hear around exploring another virtual option, and thus the conversation ensued.
Rachel, I'm sorry. Can I just, I also have some frustrations because while I think we all want what's best for students, best for teachers, and best for the community, it seems as if we never get all the pieces and all the information at the same time. So I'm somewhat curious as to how did we get to 2 weeks before what was the original date we voted on to come up with the fact that we needed this? And why didn't we hear about it after we voted in September?
Trustee Hokumer, I would defer at this point. I don't know that that would be a fair assessment for me to weigh in on conversations that our superintendent, who's on an extended leave, would or would not have had with the Board of Education. I'm aware that we had discussed it internally, and so that I apologize if you felt that that was something that we were unable to do. I can speak certainly to the Tuesday in which I began assisting the district, or the Monday evening, and the Tuesday was the study session for the board. And at that study session, it was too late for a presentation to do this in that kind of a short turnaround under the circumstances in which we found ourselves. So I'll take responsibility for that, but I also think that we have to be realistic about some of the situations. So in an ideal world, this would have been discussed at a study session prior to a board meeting.
Go ahead, Amy, sorry.
Well, so this brings me back to what I asked on Tuesday night, which is I am weary of making decisions where we are going to rush to provide something, and I question whether the resources, the data, and the effort is going to be able to happen. I think we've been making decisions in that mode, and obviously it's having an effect on the entire community. So I'm going to ask again, if we truly feel this is a better way to go, recognizing that, yes, it's another 2.5 months or whatever, but why wouldn't we take the time and do it at the semester break?
And that's a discussion for the Board of Education to have.
And I would continue to say, and I would add to that, Amy, that I believe as we continue to have that discussion, it behooves us to have an interim superintendent sitting at the table. sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say along those lines, we keep moving the date back. And I think for me, hybrid was always a compromise to be able to get students back in school because we didn't have the ability to bring them back full-time face-to-face. My personal goal is to see students in school soon, full-time face-to-face, although now I know we have to deal with increased COVID cases. So my question would be, when would be, if we move forward with the November 16th date, when would be the most likely time that we could pivot to full-time face-to-face for students? Because if we're going to move forward with a plan and have to stick with this for a long time, then I'm not sure the hybrid model is the way to go right now. So when would be our next opportunity to pivot to full-time face-to-face in person?
Are you referring to, I don't know that we could make a recommendation for that based on the data that we're seeing currently. Are you referring to just a semester break or a?
Correct, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
So for the middle school, I'll ask actually if Dr. Roberson doesn't mind sharing what that break is. I don't think I know that off the top of my head. I don't know if we, thank you.
You're asking when is the semester break?
Mm-hmm.
It's the first day of the second semester for middle school is January 18th, I believe, which is the day, it's the day after Martin Luther King Day holiday.
Thank you.
Okay, and I believe we mentioned that date the other day. So in the event that cases go down and things get better before January 18th, is it likely that we could go back to school in person full time before the semester break? What would that require if we wanted to do that, considering if we were able to? I mean, cases were okay.
I am sorry, can you rephrase that just one more?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, so in the event that COVID cases got better and we were able to return to school prior to the semester start in January 18th, what would be the possibility? What would we likely be able to pivot to full-time face-to-face instruction? Say cases get better by December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Is it likely that we could pivot, or is this a plan that we would have to stick with until the end of the semester?
That's a great question. I want to really make sure I'm thinking of all the variables as I answer it. So if we had teachers, well, the one thing that stands out to me, and I'm looking at the next part of the slide as we talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of the program itself. While all teachers in this model would be BPS educators, as we shared the other evening, some changes in students' current teacher may occur, and cross-district blends may occur in order to maximize or offer what we were doing. And so taking your question and kind of playing that tape to the end, if we were to then bring students back face-to-face, one of the things I think we need to consider is then what would happen with a student who attends Derby, but is in the dedicated virtual with a teacher who is perhaps from Berkshire. So that's, if that helps in terms of dissecting, I think that's something that would be something the district would need to consider. And we would need to know that by looking at the dedicated virtual pairing match. And the second,
Go ahead.
The second thing is just that I don't think this is not so cumbersome that it couldn't be done in a very timely fashion, but just to certainly state for the public, one of the things that we're addressing is this notion that we have moved furniture and rearranged and reconfigured classrooms. So if we're bringing a full face-to-face back, we would need a few days in obviously in order to reconfigure all of our classrooms at the middle level.
So this is helpful. Thank you, Rachel. So what I'm hearing is if we approve this plan today, although we still have to revisit it every month, it's likely that we would have to stick with this plan until January 18th, which would be the start of the new marking period, correct?
Semester. That's
I'm
a
For
sorry.
semester.
To the semester, yes. Yes, at the semester break, correct.
Okay.
I would suggest that.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to say that I feel that that's a question that, the kind of question that would, need further exploration, and I'm capable of thinking on my toes, but I'm also humble enough to know I'm not the smartest person in the room. So I want to get with our team and look at what are the angles that I may not be thinking of. And is there a different way to look at it? But my initial response is yes, we would need to wait.
Okay,
And can
thank
I
you.
ask this? Would we, or are we considering in such a pivot as Nicole mentioned of, returning back full-time face-to-face prior to a semester break, are we considering maybe maintaining the BVA for the rest of the 2021 school year?
The BVA for the elementary?
Yes, and maybe even, for those families that truly feel that may have vulnerable conditions that they have to consider, that do not want to return, we have to provide some kind of option for them. So I'm wondering, do we keep the BVA for the elementary and then perhaps the dedicated virtual program, or?
Yes, we would, because someone may not feel comfortable coming back.
Right, that was.
So we would need, just as we made a commitment with our BVA for elementary, that's, I wasn't quite sure when you said that, we would do the same for this option.
Okay.
But something we need to consider, and I'm not really sure this is even appropriate, but if that's what we are looking at down the line, if we were to say that we're going to send everyone back, that changes these virtual numbers probably, because there are many families who, while we say we're going to have 6 feet of distance, 10 kids in a classroom, if we say 20 kids in a classroom, I would imagine that now you're going to have closer to 40% of people choosing a virtual option as opposed to 33%, which is helpful in terms of putting the live kids back in the classroom. But then again, I would say, why are we rushing to make a different decision right now when there are so many of these variables out there that we're going to be looking at? I am really, really sick of fire drills. I am sick of being given options and forced to look at them with very little time to explore it and then make a decision. And that's what I feel like we have.
Amy, I agree with you 100% on making timelines that are not realistic and holding our leaders accountable for timelines that aren't realistic. But I am not okay with not providing virtual kids an option or waiting until January to give them this dedicated virtual program and just saying that live stream's okay. I agree with you on unrealistic deadlines and timelines, but I disagree with waiting until January to create this and spend time creating the perfect virtual program, because then we have 2 months where we have 33% right now at Berkshire and 23 or whatever the percentages are that are just going to be in limbo.
But we've also heard from people in the community who actually chose the virtual based on the knowledge that their children would be in their homeschool with kids they already know, the classes that they've chosen. So, I mean, this is being held up as a better option, but there are other people, I mean, every time I open my inbox, I get a new opinion. But we have heard from people who are saying, I didn't want a BVA. I wanted my child to have the opportunity to live stream into their existing class setting.
And we also heard from multiple teachers the other night at how live streaming is not the best option for teaching children. So I respectfully, I understand where you're coming from, but I also think that it's not okay to disregard the professionals who do this for their living to teach our children their thoughts on how this is being received.
But also, I'm just going to say one other thing. I actually spoke to a teacher 10 minutes before we got on this call, and it is a teacher from BCS who's doing this. She definitely acknowledged it's an exhausting process to, be monitoring virtual kids as well as kids in the classroom, working long hours. And I mean, I get that, but we also agreed that with the hybrid model, you don't get away from that as a teacher, right? So yes, there might be a few teachers that end up with the BVA, and I guess could be 100% teaching only virtual, right, Rachel? But the other teachers who are maybe doing both, we can't get away from live streaming into the classroom because you've got the other cohort who's always going to be live streaming in. So the teachers, unfortunately, have that onus on them right now until, as Nicole said, we can be full-time face-to-face, at which time then I truly do understand where, you've got one avenue for 100% virtual and one avenue for the kids who are in the classroom. It drops, well, possibly drops the need for the live stream.
So what are we going to need? What is it going to take for us to get to that point where we have full-time face-to-face?
With all of our students,
Yes.
that is the framework that I'll hearken back to that Superintendent Dajak presented as the framework that the board adopted to take a look at what are the factors that are needing to be considered, and they relate to, I'll go back and actually I can just go ahead to the
And that includes the metric system we created. That includes the Health Advisory Board and all of their advice.
yes.
Oakland County Health Department. So we are looking at science data, all related to health and safety.
This is the COVID safety framework that has been presented at every board meeting and study session and so forth, that was adopted as a manner in which discussions could be had, monitoring and updating data every time the Board of Education meets to assess. Are we closer to, I think it's all of our collective goal that not only do we have a vaccine, but also that we would get to a point where we would be able to return in person, everyone who would want to, and or are we further apart from that goal? And so these are the updates that are provided at every meeting. This is the framework.
I have a couple questions. So does the central leadership team, a majority or all, believe that a designated virtual assignment is in the best interests of kids? Let's talk just about middle school.
Does the central leadership team believe that a dedicated virtual assignment or academy or pairing is best? Is that the question? I want to make sure. Yes, the last time we had a full meeting with Superintendent Dajak, yes, we all believe that a dedicated virtual environment serves student needs in a way that is explicitly targeting instruction in a focused manner for those students.
And as Trustee Hokumer's questions revealed, that likely has been true, that a majority of central leadership has thought that for a while, but it's unclear why this is coming before the board now, but it is. It's coming before the board now. Why does central leadership believe this route is more beneficial than live streaming or Zoom in the room for students learning at home full time?
I believe that we think that there are some parents who, and I know where, because we had discussion about this, I feel it's important to acknowledge that first question, but for this question, I'll offer my own opinion, because while we discussed that, we discussed this concurrent, not as an either or, because we believe that live streaming still needs to exist for the purposes that we discussed, which are to provide continuity of learning for students who had chosen face-to-face options, but who may be sick or who
Right.
may.
I'm saying for students who elect to be home full time, central leadership has decided as a group or as a majority of central leadership that an academy format is the most beneficial for student learning. Is that true?
I will say not all, the majority.
Why?
Because when you are teaching a group of students in front of you face to face, and you are a teacher and you are working with a system that is also then projecting a group of students in and managing that technology, there are no two ways about it. Your attention is divided between the two sets of students.
Right, but that situation will play out in the hybrid model. So teachers will have that unfortunate task, which I agree is difficult for no matter what route people choose. This virtual pairing is for kids who elect to be home all the time. I'm asking if the virtual pairing is thought to be in the best interest of children who have elected to be home full time, because Trustee Rass's statements lead me to believe that it would be. I'm asking if central leadership agrees that it is, and if so, why?
For the very same reasons that we discussed earlier when we presented the virtual academy for our elementary, which is that when we take a look at our student learners, when you are interacting with a dedicated virtual teacher, the sense of community, the classroom environment and culture that you're able to cultivate within a virtual space in a room, and without having to do both things at the same time. And I'm not saying that our teachers can't multitask, because I think they do that very well, but that when we explored what are the differences in those learning environments, a child who is experiencing the hybrid is having the opportunity to interact there. It was literally an opportunity to interact in the hybrid setting with all of their peers, and most of the parents who have written us throughout the year have expressed that desire for a sense of community and for an opportunity to have face-to-face peer interactions, feel a sense of belonging, feel a sense of safety, and all of that comes with that. Even though they are getting that half of the time in that other environment and half of the time face-to-face, they're still getting that. If you are in an entirely virtual environment, you are not able to access that in the same way. That is, you're asking an opinion. That's my opinion of why. And so, and I believe I would have to ask central leadership team members to weigh in. I don't want to speak for their individual reasoning. And I would be out of line to try and get into the actual reasons for each of them. But for me, it ties into one of our dimensions of teaching and learning in the 5 dimensions framework that is our overarching purpose in this district. And And to me, I think that when you can have an opportunity to build a sense of community, that's a piece. But the other thing that I think is something that's maybe more to the point too, is that it's about choice. So if you are a parent where your child doesn't necessarily need that, then you have an opportunity to do that as well. I also want and feel a need to go back here for a minute to something that Trustee Hokumer mentioned earlier about being forced into decisions with timelines. And I hear that. And I want to go back to a comment I made on Tuesday, which is that we wanted to lift this up for critical debate and conversation, which could result in looking at timelines, looking at what an alternative timeline might be. But as we, as educators, come to answer the question, how do we make decisions? And we pride ourselves on stating the responses by choosing what's best for students. We at least felt that this option merited consideration. It didn't mean that the option didn't merit consideration with amendments. It didn't mean that the option didn't merit consideration of some other sort. We just felt that it merited consideration. And so I would hope that we have the kind of community and culture of learning here where these things can be talked about. And I hear the frustration of the trustees. Certainly I feel that as I'm attempting to navigate some waters in a 6-day period here. But I also think that part of what we pride ourselves on are these critical debates so that there's no stone unturned by the time we come to answer these things. And so I'm hoping that this conversation serves to do just that this evening.
And I appreciate that, but that's not what the context was of Tuesday's meeting. It was a vote for a continuity of learning plan, and we were presented with an option with a November 11th deadline that was presented as in the best interest of children, which is why it garnered my vote. I did not read the November 11th deadline as up for negotiation, particularly as it relates to my opinion, because I have no idea what goes into the scheduling. And I did not read the November 11th option as one open to, just open to debate and just an idea to be shared. I took it as a very real deadline and a very real option that was in the best interest of kids. And that's why it earned my vote.
Okay, and so Adrian, in all fairness, because I called the special meeting, if we would have walked away with Tuesday night, then we would have, the central admin, the teachers would have made the November 11th deadline, assuming everything. I called the special meeting, which puts us 2 days behind. However, I guess I wanted to make sure again that everyone had the details. If we're saying this is the best thing, BCS is not part of it, which raised some significant red flags with regard to not being included in the middle school definition. So, I mean, again, I don't want Rachel and her team to take the heat for what I called, because I made this meeting for 2 days. Now, given the way the weekend fell, the 13th, well, the 11th would have been the 13th, which is now the 16th. So again, I don't want Rachel to take the heat for that. I suspect they would have worked morning, noon, and night. I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page with regard to all of the details, because we are getting letters about BCS saying, if this is such a great thing, why weren't they included in this timeline, in this plan, in all fairness?
See, I think we are getting a lot more information in this meeting. I mean, I have now more information for me to make a decision based on, I think, what is equitable and what is going to be best for our kids. And so I feel better about this. So I thank you, Rachel, for all of the information you're providing. I have a much clearer picture of where we're going. I didn't realize that November, I think, is it 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th were half days. So there were just many factors that I think threw me off, and this clarifies a lot.
Rachel,
Well, now, go ahead, Amy, you were first.
sorry, just a quick question. Considering that BCS has been doing this for slightly more than a week now, has anybody from administration, the BEA, like asked to Zoom into one of their classrooms to experience what the virtual kids are experiencing?
You mean
Ask-
the live streaming? They've been doing
Yes.
what
Live
slide 10 shows, meaning.
I personally have made that request multiple times, not to the present interim superintendent.
Amy, no, I personally have not done that. I did participate in the demonstration the other day, but I have not personally done that, I think, for reasons that are evident. But I would be happy to set up time if that's something that people would like to do. I'm more than happy to work with this board to enact that.
I just I'm at a loss as to I feel like we're making decisions in a vacuum. We have a model. Have the teachers who have proposed this other model, have they gone to BCS or anybody from the BEA? I mean, I literally, this makes me sick to my stomach that I'm fatigued of trying to make decisions like this. And
Well, and I think more importantly, we're playing with the emotions of children. So children were looking forward to starting on the 5th. Then we told them it would be the 11th. And now it could possibly be the 16th. So I feel like we are losing the trust of our community when we say that something is going to happen. They're going to get used to things possibly changing all the time. And it's difficult for them to trust that what we say we're going to do is going to happen. And we can't let that become the norm.
correct. You are correct, Nicole.
Rachel?
Yes, Brian.
Yeah, how you doing? Listen, I want to thank you for your jumping in and do all this. I know it's to me it's a little confusing and convoluted. You know, I hear dates that aren't kept. I hear all this stuff. Is it possible, if I asked you a question, when elementary, middle school, and high school can go back to school? Could you just give me a date on that?
Full face-to-face or a
Face-to-face. I apologize. Face-to-face.
in the hybrid model, Brian, or in the I need a little help with that. In the hybrid.
When can we get kids back to school? That's it. Just give me a date.
So I'll reiterate.
We don't have one, Brian. We don't have a date for full-time face-to-face. We don't, unfortunately.
Well, our teachers, you know, I've heard from teachers and I've heard from other people. I mean, we should be able to give the community a date when they think, at least a date when they think they could be around when their kids are going to go back to school. We should at least have a date where elementary, middle school, and high school, where at least we have, like, it's going to be around this date. How's that? I mean,
Brian, that's what I was trying to get to earlier. So it sounds like the first possible date that children could go back to school face-to-face full-time would be in January if we move forward with the current plan that is before us.
Oh, no. I need to clarify. Face-to-face, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Trustee McKinney, you're correct. If you're talking about once we started this, if we were to toggle, yes.
Rachel, I had November 5th, November 11th. I had around Thanksgiving, and now it's January 18th.
No, Brian, I think I know what you're asking.
No, Brian.
Yeah, or perhaps President Whitman, you could clarify the dates that the board's voted on already and then what's before us this evening.
Yes, please let me. So right now, when on September 15th, we voted for the elementary plan to be rolled out as it has been rolled out. And we voted for a November 4th return date for middle school. And we voted for high school that we would start discussions on October 6th. That was on September 15th at our regular board meeting. 2 days ago, on October 20th, we voted that the elementary plan just stay as is, it keeps going. We voted to delay our middle school start until November 11th. And that we voted to start high school on December 1st. So right now to the community, the key stake dates, again, elementary is proceeding as is, middle school starts on November, well now, I guess, Rachel, it doesn't, I mean, we voted November 11th, but now you're coming back saying because of this special meeting, middle school will not start till November 16th. And high school, all systems go December 1st.
And Brian, none of those dates are full-time, full-day, face-to-face.
I get you.
Yeah.
I understand.
And not just to the benefit of Brian, but to the community.
Yeah.
That is not on the table at this point in time, citing slide whatever that has the HAB system in place that puts us in code yellow, which is virtual.
Right.
Is that right, Rachel?
Correct.
And Adrian, if we have a date, we should stick with. I mean, if we have a date, let's stick with the date. This is so people can prepare for this. So
that's what we're working on.
Dates. I just want a date where, hey, this is what we're doing.
That's what we're working on. You're right, Brian.
And Brian, I totally understand that. And basically, on Tuesday's vote, the option we were given was voting to delay and further disturb community trust to do something that's arguably in the best interest of kids who are full-time at home, or maintain that date with the community and go forward and maybe possibly down the road work on a virtual academy for the virtual matching for the middle school. You voted to keep the time frame in keeping with everything you're saying right now. I voted for what I thought was best interest of kids at home. My concern is that we're back here at the table, which is causing the timelines to be pushed further back, which is further undermining community trust. And I'm not entirely sure what new information I've gained from this meeting that I didn't have at the previous meeting.
Adrian, that's exactly right.
Well, one, we voted not realizing, not every trustee realized that BCS was not part of this. The second piece is there was definitely confusion about a virtual academy versus the dedicated virtual program, because I want to make it very clear that the teachers aren't necessarily going to be 100% virtual. And I don't think that was very clear. In fact, I know it was not very clear given some of my discussions with some of you individually. So I will take full responsibility to moving it to November 16th. However, I think I owed it to each of you individually as well as the community to understand exactly what we were voting on, given it never came up in a study session.
Well, and I'm going to ask again, this plan does not include BCS. So BCS is going to continue to do what they are currently doing, adding in their middle school cohorts on what date?
Oh, maybe we get through the rest of the slides and we see what we do from there.
Well, the rest of the slides don't address BCS.
No, it's a fair question, Amy. What is it, November 4th? Is it November 5th, or is it the 16th or 11th?
November 5th.
5th.
So I'm not clear. So our options today are to stay with what we already voted. Well, that can't happen though. We can't start on November 11th. So does that mean our options today are to go back to November 5th, which was the original date,
Right.
or switch to November 16th,
Right.
adding a dedicated virtual academy?
Yes, exactly. Spot on.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So do we feel, or have all questions been answered? So in the high school, we've left in the presentation, nothing changes for the high school. We voted on that on Tuesday for a December 1st start. That in this resolution will remain the same. Nothing changes.
And then, okay, for clarification, if with the virtual academy, that means that if students go back in person, full-time, face-to-face, those children who are served through the virtual academy will just will continue doing that without any disruption.
Wait, what?
That's what I understand. Yes, Nicole, that's what I understand too. That
Can
those,
you repeat your question, Nicole?
Yeah, so my question is, in the event that students go back to school full-time, face-to-face in January, those who are currently in the hybrid, if they go back, then that means the virtual students will stay in virtual academy without any interruption.
If they so chose.
yeah, that's what I
Right.
asked earlier. If we continue the virtual academy as it is, and then create or have a dedicated virtual online learning for our middle school, and then maybe having to create one for the high school if these people choose to be home, learning at home.
Okay, but then, and I'm gonna throw it out there though, without that they could choose, but I suspect with that point, then we're gonna start talking about staffing changes potentially. Because if you have an instructor who's half virtual, half in the class, and we go to class. So to your point, Nicole, I mean, the kids are still offered the option, but it could or could not be without interruption to the teachers, as well as to kids who may have a math teacher for the whole year that then gets pulled out, and then they have to have somebody else. Is that fair, Rachel and or Dr. Roberson?
That affects student schedules?
Yeah, well, yes, it'll be a start of a different semester. So yes, that is true. But it will also be in conjunction with the start of a different semester for the middle school in January.
Okay.
But if we vote for November 16th, that same scenario plays out, but it's not the start of a new semester. It's the start of a new quarter or try.
Yes, it'll be a start of a new quarter for middle school.
But the same scenario plays out. Possible new teacher, in fact, probably likely new teacher, giving staffing situations. Right?
Yes, and I will say that in either option, there's a possibility of staffing changes in either option, but more likely with the dedicated virtual teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm sorry to take us off a little bit. So I'm sorry. So let's go to what someone said in a public comment the other day about we don't have to social distance 6 feet with masks. My concern is that we're doing all of this for a couple of months. Our goal is to get students back in school full-time, face-to-face. So why are we currently still considering the hybrid model? What is the reason for why we can't do full-time, face-to-face right now?
Hi, I'll step in. No, it's okay, Rachel. Okay. At this point with the CDC and with OCHD and what we're doing in our county and MDHHS, there is still that requirement, or not requirement, there is still strong recommendations for the 6 feet social distancing. We cannot fit all of our kids in our buildings right now in that status. We will, you asked when we could go to full-time, under yellow, we could move to that least restrictive environment and get to a full-time capacity in yellow. What we would be looking at again is those metrics to see that those rates have significantly dropped, number one, and still be in yellow, that those age bands have continued to drop, which they're not doing. In fact, we're seeing growth happening in those. So right now we're not seeing a trend in a healthier place. And that really is ultimately our reason right now is we cannot fit everybody in and keep them at a safe distance at this time.
Okay, thank you, Anne. I just needed to ask that question for all of the viewers who are wanting us to get back in person. And so right now, this is really all that we can offer. It's a compromise because we don't have the capacity to be in person, face-to-face full time.
It's all that we can offer and maintain social distancing, which to their point is not mandatory. It's something we've chosen to do, believing it to be in the best interest of the health and safety of our staff and children. But it's not, to Anne's point, it's not mandatory.
To clarify, there are still pieces with like MDHHS, there is still some requirements and you're getting into a grayer area. There are some, it isn't mandatory, but it is strongly recommended. We would be in some territory that would be difficult for us if we were to throw that out the window right now. School district.
Well, and that'll be an interesting point once our interim superintendent shows up, that in the next study session. I think that will be our number one and key agenda item is, okay, we're now here next week. What do we do to keep pushing forward? What are the key milestones? Do we have to follow the recommended and really just start to fine tune to answer all of your points with regard to how do we keep moving forward if the numbers so warrant and let us do that? I think that would be great, again, once we have George sitting in that seat. Okay, so let's circle back. I just want to make sure before I call for a vote that all questions are answered, and I'll turn to the resolution and the slide to be very clear what we're voting on.
Yes.
And then if the vote doesn't pass, then what our alternative vote is. So
Kim, can you read exactly what we're voting on?
I will, Brian, yes.
Thank you.
So trustees, the resolution that you have in your mailbox is the exact same resolution that we passed on September 15th with Superintendent Dajak, except the dates have changed. So there's no key metrics in this resolution. This worded resolution ties directly to the PowerPoint that is on the screen. So, and I'll circle back to that. So just so you know, this is exactly, again, it's approved as far as the language, the layout, but essentially what this resolution says is that if we approve it, we're tying to a specific slide in this presentation. Knowing we have to have a place to start, and again, I want to make it very clear to the trustees and the community, on slide 10, which is up on our screen, we are stating, this is a potential vote, that we are saying that we would vote to go back to what we originally approved on September 15th. So we would go back to a timeline that the kids would return to school on November 5th. It is a day later, again, citing that the half-day PD is on Friday, 10:30. So again, we had voted on that. This is not right now what we have voted on Tuesday. Again, the Tuesday vote has the kids starting now on November 16th. So the option is I'm going to call for a motion, a second, and then we will discuss. At that point, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just need to ask a couple more questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so we have to start with the end in mind. Our goal is to get students back in school full-time, face-to-face. So how is it that other districts are doing full-time face-to-face if they're not having to follow the recommendations? The state recommendations.
Well, Nicole, can you specifically, like, for example, Troy is doing full-time face-to-face because 50% of their population has chosen to remain virtual. So they are still able to space students out.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Rochester, Bloomfield Hills are doing a hybrid. Clarkston is back full-time, but I don't know what their student count, building square footage, I don't know how they're doing it. And Lake Orion is going back full-time, and they have told their constituents that while they will make every effort to provide 6 feet of distance, it is not a guarantee.
Okay, so then in another scenario, when do we have to meet again? In another month? That will put us what, mid-November? So we could potentially leave things as is and send students back to school full-time, face-to-face in December. Is that another scenario potentially?
That's why we vote on the plan every month.
Yes.
With the idea that as the situation changes, we can change with it.
I think, Amy, that's important that you said that. I think that some community members are questioning our vote in general and why we're voting on this again. And I think it's important to restate that this is something that we have to vote on every single month while we're in the pandemic. This is not something that we're just bringing forth because we want, I mean, we have to do it every month. And I think there's some confusion in the community. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
And in addition to the vote every month, we have 2 study sessions preceding that regular meeting of a vote, where this is a line item agenda topic every week, basically. So Nicole, to your point, it will be on our November 3rd agenda for study session. Absolutely something we talk about. It will be on our November 10th agenda, and then we will turn around and vote on November 17th. So again, if the board wants to start pushing for a face-to-face 100%, we start those conversations and start mapping out exactly what needs to be done. And it could be that in come December, we have the date, it's set, everything's rolled out on a timely, organized manner.
But is that feasible once we've done this schedule for the hybrid model? And I guess I'm waiting for Dr. Roberson or Rachel to answer that, because I just don't want to get us down a path that we can't turn back and then we're just tied to the January 18th date.
If we are doing the hybrid model for all students, yes, it would be very easy to transition into a full face-to-face. If we create a virtual academy for students, we would want that change to happen at a semester change or at a quarter change, because there is a higher likelihood of staffing changes. So you would want to have that at an appropriate juncture, like a quarter change or a semester change.
Thank you.
Can I ask that, because we don't have any data that supports that a majority of our district want to go back to face-to-face, or that a majority wants this or that. Can we, starting with middle school, or if it's too late, starting with high school, survey in a more thorough fashion? You know, even though at this time we are only offering X or Y, please answer the next 10 questions. You know, between X and Y, which will you select for your family? You know, question 2. if it were an option, which it is not at this time, would your family select in-person learning? You know, and then we have data that we're working with, and we can say, well, even though it's not on the table right now, today, 35% of people are interested in going back full time. You know, like we don't have that. And I think that's really important to have that information. Staffing, just a survey, and then families, just a survey. This is not on the table right now, but if it were, what would you decide? And I know that things change day to day. And nobody knows that better than the families who are frustrated right now with our planning. But I think we just need to have some data to work with, even if it's just one moment in time and it changes. I really want that information. So if we're going to have these discussions about going back to back full time, I want to know how many people in the community want that and believe that to be in the best interest of their family.
How do we?
Adrienne, I think it's safe to assume, I could be wrong, but I think most people who want hybrid would probably prefer full-time face-to-face.
But we
I don't,
know
that's not, we don't have data to support that. And I don't believe that to be safe to assume.
Well, I do.
Adrian, how long do you think that would take to get that information?
I have no idea.
It's a survey. I'm sure that people who feel strongly on both sides could easily answer, you know, a short survey in 2 days, 3 days. I mean, I don't know. I agree with Adrienne that before, and you know, again, I'm weary of fire drills. So I think moving forward, we need to be working from a place of facts and data and information that helps us to shape these decisions a little bit more clearly. But
And Adrian, I didn't say that just to be, I don't know how long that would take to gather all that information. And we're trying to get kids back to school. And so I don't know how long that would take.
Well, that's something that I'm just making notes on, and certainly as we transition Dr. Heitch, we can discuss that, if not now when he arrives, and what, you know, in part of this that we've talked about, part of the context of this meeting that I'd like to bring forward to Dr. Heitch is how might he want to collect data? Because one of the points that if we're going to survey people, that we know that while one point in time survey results might yield this, with new data, it might yield something different. And I'm talking about drastic measures, not small tweaks, but drastic measures in terms of our COVID reporting. So I think it would be important to have ongoing grabs, as they call them, of what the community feels, or teachers, students, parents, as they're engaged in engaging with us. So I'm making a note, and we can discuss that further.
More questions? Jen, did you have something a little bit ago? Sorry.
No, I think it's important to just point out and uplift that instruction takes months or years to flesh out, and it's done in collaboration with educators. And I feel like our timelines, we are forcing things and skipping steps that are vital to our success. I truly do. And to Amy's point earlier, I believe that right now we are leading our community by example, and our example is that I believe we're showing right now is we're not trusting our teachers, we're not trusting our leaders. We think we know more and what's best, and our role is to ask the tough questions and advocate for public education and look at our district critically, but we need to do this in partnership with educators, and I feel like we're not hitting the mark there, in my opinion.
To that point, Jennifer, Trustee Raz, we had a number of educators who attended the study session or this meeting on Tuesday who were advocating for full-time, face-to-face, in-person instruction. So that's one of the reasons that I'm asking so many questions about that, because I also know that many members in our community want that as well.
I 100% agree with you. I just think that we need to continue to partner with our educators when we're making decisions like this.
More questions, please? Further details? No? Okay, I'm going to keep moving forward. If anything else pops up, please stop me and we will address. So again, trustees, as I was mentioning, resolution 25 again is words basically approving everything that ties to this presentation. Because we need to start somewhere, I am saying that we are starting at slide 10, and this will be the original data that we vote on. If it does not pass, we will then do a second motion, and then we will move into Rachel. Can you move to the next slide where it says the 16th? I think it's slide 13. Right there. That is what I will call the second resolution or second vote. So again, to go back, the first vote that we will take, if you vote yes, you are voting to do for Derby and Berkshire a return to classroom on 11/5 with no dedicated virtual arrangement. Is that clear?
It is, thank you.
It is. However, I don't think this has been answered.
Okay.
When would be the next opportunity for them to have a virtual academy?
I think we would go back. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Dr. Roberson.
No, I was just going to say, if we didn't create one now, then the next opportunity would be at the semester change, which would be January, it's 19th. The 18th is a Monday, a holiday. And so it'll be Tuesday, January 19th.
Okay. And then, so what would they be doing?
They would participate in the live streaming
Okay.
to the classroom
Okay.
with the
Thank you.
3 options that were shared earlier.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And
Good.
Dr. Roberson, and they would do that maintaining the schedules as it is. So you guys would not be upending a master schedule, correct?
We would not be upending a master schedule, but I do want to say that we cannot say that there will be no schedule changes, because if there are teachers who cannot return, we would need to make some changes in that respect.
Okay.
And I guess if we so said at the next board meeting, this is what our intention is to roll out this on January 19th. Is it safe to assume that the team could start working on it now, and that you would have X amount of weeks to then be able to have it flushed out, ready to go for the 19th?
Absolutely.
I just want to stress, and I think it's important to mention again, that we need to be crystal clear on what live streaming looks like, that the amount of learning time will be different than what it is now. C3 and A2 are not what they currently are, and there are no built-in opportunities to meet with teachers or have small group for extra help with the current proposed schedule. And I do think that we cannot leave that up for interpretation. We need to make sure that our community understands that with that plan of return on 11/5, that is what the reality will be for the hybrid model.
And Dr. Roberson, I don't want to put words in your mouth, to piggyback with what Secretary Rass has just stated. We have brought that up before about C3 and A squared. It's my understanding that we are currently working on that or looking at that. So is it fair to say if we keep that as an agenda item every week, that will somehow be addressed and or taken care of and or addressed somehow, some way?
Yes, the middle school principals are working with their FACs on a schedule that would include some C3A squared time within one of the hours. However, it will not look the same as it currently does because the time allotment that students have access to is different. Remember, in that middle school schedule, there's a block of time that is needed for students to go home, eat, and be on their Zoom if they were in person for that first part of the day, which shortens the school day. And because it shortens the school day, the amount of time and to put 2A squared and C3 is not there. So I just want to be transparent that they are trying to build in that social emotional time, but it will not be the exact same.
And it won't be the full time that it is right now, given what the schedule allows.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what else? Brian, any other questions? Brian, Trustee Jennings, any other questions?
No, thank you. Thanks, Kim. Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, so do we feel, is it time? Can we take at least, again, I don't know if there's any other details that you would like to ask. If not, then I am going to ask for a motion for Resolution 25, the approval of the extended continuity of learning plan. It would be dated October 22nd, 2020. And we would be approving slide number 10, which again is for Derby and Berkshire, as well as the high school, which is not changed, but the Derby and Berkshire would have a return to classroom dated 11/5, and it would be a hybrid plan with no dedicated virtual at this point. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so it's moved by Lori, seconded by Treasurer Hokumer. Okay, I am going to do a roll call vote. Vice President Ageluni.
Support.
Secretary Rass.
Nay.
Treasurer Hokumer.
Support.
Trustee Jennings.
Support.
Trustee McKinney.
Nay.
Trustee Young.
Nay.
And Trustee President Whitman, I am a yes. So Resolution 25 passes 4-3. So what that again to the community means is that the middle school, Berkshire and Derby will be going back to school face-to-face on 11/5 with a hybrid plan. High school will go back to school on 12/1. And again, our elementary will remain as is, as we approved on September 15th.
Kim,
Yes.
could I just ask one thing regarding high school? Because I think some people are a little bit confused that we have really not done a deep dive into the details of high school. And I think that because I've said 3 times how stressed I am making decisions with, information coming at us at the last minute, I would really like to commit that we have information at the next study session to talk about what high school hybrid model can look like and how we will come to consensus with the BEA, with administration to make sure that a plan can be put forth that is viable and hopefully something we can all agree on.
Rachel, I don't know if you have anything that you want to state to that. I will make sure, Amy, that continues to be a line item on every agenda, as well as when we introduce Dr. Heisch next week. That will be one of his critical things on his to-do list first up, is looking towards that date, as well as, again, getting the ball rolling sooner than later. So we will definitely keep that at the forefront, knowing that 12/1 will be here before you know it.
So I have a question. Given the way that the majority of the board just voted, are we now saying that there is nothing we can do for virtual learners at the middle school level until January?
I don't want to answer on behalf of central admin. I did not take it to be that. I would say that if anything, we would say that we certainly still do support of a dedicated virtual. However, that we want it to be thought out, that it would not be just for Derby and Berkshire. I think we owe it to BCS to incorporate them in the discussions. But most importantly, I think we need to get Dr. Heisch in the seat to help give us direction, guidance, and to really help us prioritize what our next steps are. So that was a long-winded, I'm not necessarily convinced that January 19th has to be, that we can do things prior to that. But that's,
Well, I would.
Well,
hope-
but that was my understanding when we just voted, though.
I'm just saying, that's just my own personal opinion, that I think we can start to get things ready to go. I'm not an educator. What I'm trying to say to Secretary Rass is that I don't want this to not be a line item. I know it's a double negative until January 1. I want to make sure it's on the forefront. If indeed it is really, as Rachel mentioned it, if it's that warranted, I believe it needs to keep on our agenda item every single week. I do.
I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that.
All right. I certainly don't want to make any commitments. And Nicole, to your point, I don't again want to speak on behalf of central admin or the teachers, but I will ensure it is on the agenda item every week that we discuss
Thank you.
it and keep
And
it.
Trustee Hokumer, we're very much committed to having further discussion about high school. Happy to do that. That would be something that we'll work on for the next several study sessions, so that as we can continue to have open discussion about each of those pieces. I don't know if you wanted me to go to that high school slide now, President Whitman, or not, but just this was, as a reminder, what was presented on Tuesday was the hybrid half-day model. And so we would be looking at that. That is what was proposed. And then what I'm understanding is you'd like much more dialogue and discussion around it. So we will plan for that for our next study sessions.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, trustees and central leadership for that. We are now moving on to the public comments section of the meeting. We do have 72 public comments that were submitted. We do have several that were anonymous, and unfortunately, given our policy, we do require that the full name of the person be shared. So in the interest of privacy, those two comments will not be read. We will reach out to those people individually. However, again, anonymous comments will not be read. So I have comments 1 through 18. I will start. Greetings, ideas. Hybrid, I think students should be able to decide if they want to come in or when, or perhaps never. Live stream solves this issue. Help. The district needs to provide more help academically to students. tutor list, something. Zoom is a hard way to get help. Classes, more project-based learning in every class. If you struggle with traditional education on Zoom, then it's impossible to earn better grades. Most teachers are teaching in traditional ways. School board, they need a leader. We need someone in education to lead, not a board that does not qualify. Kristen Dye. Good afternoon. Number one, as I watched and rewatched the board meeting from Tuesday, October 20th, I hope that the board and administration have taken the opportunity to rewatch it as well. After the number 5th/11th vote for middle school return to hybrid potential BBA, it was apparent that not all board members were voting with the same mindset when it came to BCS. Please remember that due to the unique structure of BCS, the 5th graders there have not yet returned to in-person class. Please do not extend the current return date and make them wait even longer. Number 2, students should be in school full-time. The hybrid model is way too complicated, not enough quality instruction or connection. Too much time is being spent discussing and arguing about it. The only reason that any parent chooses hybrid is to get kids back into school, if only for a few hours a day. After our daughter was born, my husband and I knew that we wanted to raise our kids in a leading public school system. I think we all agree that strong schools are the backbone of any community, and before moving, we, like many others, asked ourselves, what about the schools? So in earlier days of the internet, we did some research, we talked to people, and we decided that Birmingham Public Schools offered what we were seeking for our growing family. Strong test outcomes, of course, but resources, support, community, neighbors, and friends. We chose Birmingham 18 years ago. Our daughter graduated from Seaholm this past spring. Currently, our older son is a junior at Groves, and our younger son is in 5th grade at BCS. In March, coronavirus pandemic hit our state. In a matter of days, all of our lives changed. We did not know all we were going to lose. But our kids have lost so much time. The things that they missed, they will never get back. Small things, maybe just some, but events and milestones that they were looking forward to since the day they stepped into kindergarten. Spring sports, musicals, prom, charity week, graduation, to name just a few. Fear forced us into our homes, barely even leaving to get a breath of fresh air in the beautiful spring that we had this year. By May, people were outside walking, riding their bikes, trying to find some good in the slower pace of their lives. But this is not March, it is October, and our community is not strong. It cannot be strong without kids in schools. Our kids are merely doing school from home. It is not what it should be, and we all know this. As a community, we have thrown everything we knew and expected out the window. We have all lost. Our district should be leading. The best thing about our district are our students and our teachers. They should be together in school full time. High school students need their full curriculum as the foundation of the next stage of their lives. They also need socialization to learn how to work with others and not be able just to turn off their camera if they feel like it. Middle school students are preparing for high school, developing new interests and skills, whether it is a sport, music, theater, or participation in other organizations. For many, this is their first chance to try new things that were not available to them as elementary students. Elementary students develop each year, progressing from kindergarten through 5th grade, gaining confidence and building friendships, learning to love learning. This is not done effectively through the current model. As we approach November, we know more about coronavirus and how to prevent the spread of this disease. Yes, there are more positive cases being identified, but hospitals and healthcare are not stressed. People who are ill are quarantining. Anyone entering a school building should wear masks, wash their hands, and complete a health screening, but they should be in school. We can do this. Thank you, Jennifer Holcomb. Hello, enough time has passed. Enough schools around us have put their students first. Learn from example. How is it possible that you have responsibility to educate and keep these children safe, but can't grasp an opportunity to safely bring back the new normal, which is masks and in person? Clarkston School, Bloomfield Hill Schools, Detroit Country Day, Cranbrook, all of the area Catholic schools have all been back in session full-time from the start or a phase into full-time. I watched as the board and we taxpayers listened to more proposals, more red tape, more talks of delays, and zero action. Board members who are torn. My children are at risk. Am I okay? Am I okay? Can you hear me or no?
We can
Can
hear you.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you guys are saying frozen. Okay, sorry. Is BPS at a greater risk than Catholic schools? Greater risk than private schools or other public school systems who have children in-person learning as it should be? I ask you, why can't BPS cut their own red tape, consider majority rule, stop catering to a minority, and take action? Don't start with a hybrid. Don't delay the start date one more day. Just let them get back to school now. Christina McBride. Dear Birmingham Board of Education, I am ready to submit my public comment in that we need to provide full-time in-person instruction for the Birmingham School District. I have both middle school and elementary school age children in the district. We have failed to support our children and continue to do so with a lack of plans in place to even get our middle school and high school kids back half days. The delays and prolonged planning is getting us nowhere, which now results in both severe mental and physical drain on our kids and teachers. This is a total mess and disgrace to our well-known district for education. The surrounding districts of Troy, Bloomfield Hills, and Rochester all have had K-12 students back in person for weeks now and are already discussing plans for full in-person teaching. I really don't understand why our leaders haven't reached out to the other districts that have implemented their in-person plans successfully and where the teachers have not gotten sick from the virus. This board and administration has been elected to lead our community, make the right choices for what's right for our children, and put plans in place which unfortunately have fallen short of. As adults serving on our board for the community, we need to be asking ourselves, are we really doing what is right for kids? Have we stopped to think of the mental instability and depression associated with the lack of plans and virtual teaching that has been put on the kids and teachers? It is astronomical, the mandates that have been put on our kids and teachers, when all anyone is asking for is full in-person instruction. Private schools in our community have been holding full day in-person instruction since August 31st. We need to be working with our leaders to understand how they have successfully built plans and executed seamlessly for over 2 months now. Please consider the decision for these kids that are now not only struggling with the virtual education, but now the mental instability. We need to have these kids back in full time and can do so with COVID guidelines provided. Thank you, Kay Ann Knudsen. I write again to voice my concerns to the Board of Education regarding your inability to develop a plan that meets the needs of the district students and families. I am tired of watching lengthy board meetings that leave me more confused about our plan and direction. The BOE has had plenty of time to develop a safe and effective plan. For each problem that I hear discussed at your board meetings, there are numerous solutions, some of which our neighboring districts and private schools have already figured out successfully. You have had parent panels, physician panels, and many lengthy meetings without a clear plan. Your job is difficult, and I acknowledge that. But if you can't figure this out with all the resources you have already engaged, why not look to other districts or schools that may have solid, fluid plans in place? Their plans aren't secret and are very well executed with minimal risks noted. I have heard that the hybrid plan that is being proposed would put our students in the classroom without laptops learning digitally. This is not the face-to-face instruction that your constituents are looking for. We have amazing teachers in our district. Let them come back into the classroom with safety measures in place and do what they do best. We did purchase the plexiglass that was discussed this summer, correct? Most students implemented the hybrid model as a short-term transition to face-to-face instruction, while we are way behind. Let's simplify things and have 2 options, full-time face-to-face or virtual. We have screening tools in place for our sporting events and are all very familiar with using them. All kids are already accustomed to wearing masks. Anyone not feeling well or not passing the screening questionnaires will stay at home. I've seen the detrimental effects of our current model, the loss of many students' families to other schools, kids with anxiety and depression who have never experienced this before, increased substance abuse and suicide in our own community. Conversely, I've seen other districts and private schools way ahead of BPS and their children are receiving in-person education, and in many cases full-time. A great number of us are ready to get our kids back to school. Can the district please figure this out? Sincerely, Lodia and Robert Runco. Public comment number 7. Dear PPS Board, I urge you to conduct a survey of your customers to assess what we want for our children and their education. If majority want to return to a normal schedule, i.e. 5 full days, you need to put your own personal biases, fears, and views aside and bypass this hybrid plan for middle and high school. There are many examples of districts all around us that have implemented a safe return to school with a 5-day full schedule. You have already lost 550 kids to private schools, which equates to $6.6 million. Trustee Hokumer made a reference on Tuesday night to the corporate world. In the corporate world, a $6.6 million loss in revenue, in this case funding, would justify termination. How many more kids' dollars do you have to lose before you start listening to what your customers, taxpayers, parents want for their kids? On Tuesday, you voted to create a BVA for middle school students, which impacts 20% of your customers, effectively delaying a face-to-face start for 80% of your customer base. This is based on the numbers shared from the middle school survey. Again, in business, the directive would be to satisfy the 80%, not the minority. In the case of the pandemic, you have to provide a virtual option. Well, what about the 80% who want to return to school and are less than satisfied with this hybrid plan, which provides very minimal instruction time? What is the desire to improve the face-to-face option like you did with providing a BVA for middle and high school students? You also heard from several middle school teachers who told you Zoom in the room will not work, and yet you completely ignored their feedback. Again, in business, companies that have satisfied employees have satisfied customers. In essence, happy teachers means happy kids and parents. After the meeting on Tuesday, my hypothesis is you will lose more customers and more money for the district. There was a clear lack of leadership during that meeting. There were several times when you didn't even know exactly what you were voting for or against. Birmingham schools used to be elite, and many parents have sacrificed over the years to live in this district. I strongly believe the only way you are going to restore faith with your target customer base at this point is to offer 2 options. 1, BVA, and 2, 5 full days with an option to attend BVA if a student has to quarantine. I implore you to benchmark and even copy other districts who have successfully found a way to make reinventing the wheel found a way to make it work. At this point, we are so far behind other districts that copying what is working versus reinventing the wheel is the only option. This half-day hybrid with Zoom in the room is not a quality education for our kids. In the corporate world, we start with asking the question of how might we versus why can't we do something. Please consider how might you offer these 2 options versus why you cannot, and put our
President
kids in
Whitman,
education.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you. That was Kelly Miller. Okay, to the Board of Education, this is number 8. I appreciate all of the hard work and difficult decisions, time and energy that you have put forth to serve the Birmingham community. As a parent of 2 children currently in the Birmingham Public Schools, I have to voice my frustration with the state of our current situation. I have sat through all of the board meetings and am saddened that it seems that the last 2 months have failed to produce any viable plan moving forward to get our kids back into school. It was difficult to watch Tuesday night's meeting and witness the state of confusion that Birmingham schools are in. I am not sure why Birmingham has to reinvent the wheel. We have multiple school districts surrounding us that have come up with plans that seem to be working. It seems as if we are spinning our wheels. We need to get our kids into school. While virtual learning works for many families, it fails to do so for many kids that are falling through the cracks. Relationships with teachers are not being made. The endless days of staring at a computer after 7 months of sitting home have become unbearable. I have seen one of my kids, who is typically a good student, lose all motivation to do well. The situation has become hopeless. The schools are incapable of helping and providing a choice for families in which the schools are incapable of helping these kids. There is no solution for them except to get them back in the classroom. Please serve our community and provide a choice for families in which virtual learning is failing. Thank you, Nicole Peltz. Okay, number 9. Hello and thank you to our volunteer board. Any lack of a decision is in effect a decision and has ramifications. Continually postponing or not choosing start dates for middle and high schools also the decision to delay and deny our 3 kids and all students the quality education we expected when we chose Birmingham as our home. Difficult decisions often require compromise, and not all parties will be happy. The 80-20 rule states that if 80% of the stakeholders accept the outcome, the outliers may still be served. It won't be perfect, but get started on a plan for the vast majority of students to get back to their classrooms in some capacity and adjust later. Keep it simple for middle school and go back on a part-time basis with live cohorts and virtual students as well as those in quarantine, participating live via Zoom or through Zoom recordings of a live class. One set of teachers can manage this instead of a separate set for BVA, which you can't staff in short order. Live virtual can be managed with additional high-risk teaching resources, switching between Zoom classes to help those remote students as a complement to the in-class teacher. Consider BVA for a subsequent quarter or trimester. Pick a plan that actually can be executed and start. Put the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders from BCS on the same middle school calendar as the other two until the semester ends if it helps execute the vast majority. Start there. High school could be the same half-day cohort calendar and try out the concept of an all-day Monday, Tuesday for a cohort and Thursday, Friday for the other. Do what's working elsewhere in nearby schools, but state the plan, execute, and adjust at the next trimester. Change the rules to reduce hallway interaction and close contact, such as reducing the number of periods in classes offered. Cut middle school to 5 longer periods with virtual A² and high school to 4 if possible. Do it for one semester or trimester and use summer to catch up if necessary. Longer class times cut down on hallway time and smaller course menu helps with staffing. Cancel all adult and community education in any of our buildings if you haven't already to prevent any potential exposure that way. Partner with CVS or another local clinic like Amcura to offer periodic COVID testings in revolving school parking lots to capture more cases early. This is covered by insurance or the BEF can raise funds to supplement. For this to work, there must be a very clear and high sense of trust between all parties. A quality live virtual experience helps incent parents to keep kids home if they won't miss anything by being in class. Stating our plans and executing them
President
allows.
Whitman, I'm sorry, your time is up. We have to move to the next comment.
Thank you. That was from Eric and Amy Davidson. Public comment number 10. To the Birmingham Board of Education, I am writing to implore you to put the education of the children in this district at the forefront of your decision making. Our kids' education is suffering from all the time spent not being of your decision making. Our kids' Our kids' education is suffering from all of the time spent not being able to come up with a solid, concrete plan for full-time in-person learning with safety protocols in place. While the hybrid plan offers some opportunity for face-to-face learning, it is putting stress on families and teachers, while the kids are getting less instructional time and inconsistency in their school day. In my opinion, we need a plan for a full day of in-person learning along with a fully virtual option for those that want it. I would also ask, why has there not been another recent survey sent out to fully understand what families in the district really want? This half-day model is not sustainable and our kids are missing out on the education they deserve. My husband and I are both Birmingham district alumni and choose the school district for our kids because of its exemplary education, and I do not feel they are receiving that this year. We can do better for them. They deserve the education that Birmingham has always provided in the past. While I understand this is a stressful time for everyone, and you all along with central admin have been working very hard, I ask that we do better for our kids and give them the best possible education. Full-time, face-to-face learning with a virtual option for those families who prefer that. Thank you for your time. B. Cocroft. Okay, public comment number 11. Dear BPS Board of Education, your constituents have spoken. We want full-time in-person learning. Other districts in the area have achieved this with minimal or no issues. Why aren't you putting our kids first? Thank you, Heather Case. Number 12, I am writing this letter to strongly encourage the district to move forward with a full day face-to-face return. I am a mother of a 6th grade Derby student. She is an only child who is sitting at home in front of a computer screen with no interaction with other children. It is taking an emotional toll on her. She has always been a happy, confident, and outgoing girl, and now I am seeing her withdrawn and sad. Our children's mental health is way more important than anything else at this point. I am pleading to you, please figure out how to get these children back face to face as soon as possible. I know it can be done because I've witnessed firsthand private schools successfully educating face to face since August and keeping staff members and students safe. Thank you for your time, Amy and Larry Baganavi. Sorry. Public comment number 13. Hello, I am writing to support full-time return to school. The hybrid model my children are in is better than full virtual, but managing the schedule, making sure they are engaged, picking up the right supplies, inevitably missing something, even though the teachers and staff have been amazing with the communication, is not sustainable. My stress level, with the understanding that this is hard on everyone, is working, but it still isn't good enough, is so high. I do have high but reasonable expectations of what the schools here in Birmingham can provide for our family. I believe that they are not getting what they should be out of their education and time. I know there are many parents who are afraid of the risks, and I respect that, but I don't think living in semi-quarantine indefinitely is a working solution for my family that is 2 full-time working parents that keep being asked to pause work to help with the daily hiccups, inevitably too late for it to make a difference for the day's lessons anyway. I request and urge you to move forward full-time in-person learning as soon as possible. Thank you, Andrea Rokasak. Okay, number 14. Hello, I certainly do not envy your situation in these unusual times, but I would like to weigh in with my opinion on going back to school. From 2008 through 2019, I was a training engineer with my current company. I taught in-person classes as well as an instructor-led online class. These classes were generally 1 to 2 days in length, involving professionals who were seeking to learn how to use my company's tools. In my experience, the adult learners generally were more engaged and got more out of the in-person classes than the online classes. And these were people who were trying to learn a tool for use in their daily work. It seems to me that professional adults would have an easier time with online learning rather than our children are having, especially since the classes were only a couple of days long rather than continuing for an extended period of time. It is because of this experience that I am a strong proponent for getting the kids back into the classroom full time. I am very concerned that this extended time of online learning is going to have a negative impact on the rest of their lives. These children are our future. I feel we need to do everything we can to get them the best education possible. There was also times I needed to do a hybrid training with people in front of me in the classroom and people online at the same time. Admittedly, that was tough. I don't think it provided the best scenario for either group, but it did allow for a greater outreach. The first time I needed to do such a thing, I had 1 hour notice before the start of the first day of a 5-day class, and I was able to get it done. It even had an additional challenge that the internet connection at the location where I was at teaching failed on the second day, and I had to describe all the actions I was taking so the people on the phone could follow along. I do not encourage going with a hybrid solution, but I could see where it would help for those parents who are concerned about sending their children back to school. I bring up this experience to show that it shouldn't take weeks or months to make hybrid a possibility. Naturally, I don't want to see anyone get sick, but I also want to see us do what's best for the future of our children. Please get them back to school full time. Thank you, Jeff Harper. Public comment number 15, full-time in school, please, from Terry McAlope. Public comment number 16, good afternoon. I would like to propose a plan. 2 options, 1, full-time face-to-face, or 2, full-time virtual. I'm not exactly sure what transpired at the last meeting, or exactly what benefit the central admin or BOE is serving our children at this point. I am so confused as to what we are debating and have yet to be given any answers to why we are still keeping our children at home for those parents that want their kids back. Not only have we significantly surpassed the negative impact of keeping our kids at home, I'm unaware of the benefit we have achieved by doing so. We have now divided, overwhelmed, instilled fear, confusion, and anger into an entire community. This is not something to be proud of. The fallout of your actions is real, with real impact. Your actions and decisions directly affect an entire community, emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially. Please remember that. The what ifs will always be there. Not every scenario will be able to be protocoled or prepared for. People will get COVID. There will be risks. Children are failing. Parents are failing. We are failing our children. Fear will trump science for some, but it is your job to know better and do better. We should not have to continue to email the same comments week after week or give article after article to prove reality. Please put our kids back to school full time. Let my kid have a snack at school. This has gone too far. Keep the sick, high risk, and vulnerable at home. Thank you for your time and consideration, Nicole Miller. Public comment number 17. Dear Board of Education and BPS Administration, I am confused as to what the plan put forward on Tuesday entails. I am specifically talking about the high school plan. It is my understanding that our kids will be assigned to cohorts that will attend school half days and instruction, while in the socially distanced classroom will still be via Zoom. How is this an improvement for what they have right now? I would much rather have my daughter in school full time, like the majority of schools in the state, but at least right now she is in regular classes all day long and with consistent teachers' instruction. I am very discouraged by the lack of progress. If we are truly following the science and lead of other successful back to school plans, the kids should be going back to school full time. This lackluster and apathetic hybrid plan is beyond disappointing. Please consider what is really best for our kids and teachers and stop letting fear guide your decisions. Sincerely, Carrie and Rob Gillette. And my last one, number 18. To the Birmingham Board of Education, our daughter is a junior at Seaholm. We moved into Birmingham because of the excellent reputation Birmingham schools had. We have been happy up until this fall when the hybrid option was removed for students. Many districts in the area have made tremendous strides in their schools to allow the kids to go back to school safely. Brighton High School has been back face to face since the return to school in September. They have had 4 days of block scheduling and 1 day online. Has BPS considered an option like this for Groves and Seaholm? We need critical thinking strategies for back to school. Look at facts and figures of other districts who have successfully returned to school, and please leave your emotions out of any decision making. Sincerely, Molly and Joe Mercurio. And that concludes my 18 public comments. I am now going to transition it over to Trustee Treasurer Hokumer for 19 through 36.
Thank you, Kim. This is BPS. It says BPS BOE trustees. I implore you to return the children of Birmingham to full-time face-to-face school as soon as possible. It is glaringly obvious that the virtual learning environment is failing our children on multiple levels. Birmingham is so far behind surrounding districts in Oakland County and beyond that while they are currently voting on full-time face-to-face return, we are only 1/3 of the way into executing a hybrid model. A model which, as you heard from many of the teachers themselves on Tuesday evening, will not be a significant improvement from the all virtual one in place today. We need to stop wasting time and focus on a full-time return. We cannot afford to take 1 step forward and 2 steps back at this point. The community at large is frustrated, anxious, and upset that the BPS superintendent and Board of Education is not listening to the taxpayers who placed them in their positions. Birmingham will continue to lose children to other districts and private schools, which will result in millions of lost dollars, not to mention the severe impact of the backward slide in academic growth and development that will move Birmingham from its spot as one of the highest ranking districts in the state for standardized test scores to one of the lowest. We need leadership, decisiveness, and a clear plan forward to get these children safely back in school full time. I would also like to address the following. According to the Michigan Safe Schools Roadmap, 6 feet of distance is strongly recommended but not required as a safety protocol to return. Countless other districts across the state of Michigan are meeting the required protocols and doing what they can on the remaining recommendations. These are districts with far less funding to work with on top of it. Most of these schools have been in session for over 60 days now, and it is clear that there has not been any kind of spike or spread inside these buildings. If children and adults alike can safely frequent restaurants, movie theaters, gyms, bowling alleys, and not to mention play athletics with masks on, then they can go to school. The following was stated in a joint press release by the American Academy of Pediatrics along with the American Federation of Teachers in July of 2020. We recognize that children learn best when physically present in the classroom, but children get much more than academics at school. They also learn social and emotional skills at school, get healthy meals and exercise, mental health support, and other services that cannot be easily replicated online. It is clear that the BOE is not taking these facts into account as they make decisions. They must start now.
Trustee Hokumer, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your time is up.
It's done. That was from Carrie Kovac. We need to get back to school and go back the first day of second try, which is December 1st. No more excuses. The board had all summer to prepare. We have no true leadership anymore. Other schools have been successful. Maybe a phone call to their leadership will help our board. I also would like more clarity on who they voted in as the long-term interim superintendent. Who is he? Where did he come from? And what is his background? We have a right to know this major detail in this current environment. Thank you, Debbie Gibbs. Good morning. My children are fourth generation BPS students. My husband and I are both BPS alumni and come from a long line of family that are current or retired educators. We specifically moved back to this area for BPS. We are absolutely speechless at the lack of education our children have received since March 2020. While all the surrounding private schools and neighboring public schools have done an outstanding job engaging children and assuring their students aren't left behind, BPS has failed their students miserably. How many more students need to exit BPS and move to private where they offer full-time, face-to-face full days before BPS realizes they dropped the ball? Livonia went back full-time, face-to-face 2 weeks ago, including high school. Children are lonely and isolated at home. The risks of keeping these kids at home are higher than the risks of sending them to school. Depression and suicide rates among children is going to be on such an extreme high as the winter/darkness approach. Part of school is the socialization, interaction with kids from all walks of life and different personalities. Being in school isn't just about the academics. It is constantly learning how to meet new people, developing friendships, respecting their teachers and authority. It is so sad to see Birmingham, that prides itself on outstanding academics and wealth, fail the next generation so miserably in the blink of an eye. Please, please, please get these brilliant, vibrant children back in school, full days, face-to-face with a teacher and not looking at a computer all day. ASAP. Thank you sincerely, Kathy and Mike Tomlanovic. This is public comment number 22. The live streaming plan sounds too complicated and isn't supported by the teachers. Yet we must have an online option and an in-person option, preferably a full-time in-person option. In-person learning can be done safely. Various studies, including 2 new international studies, show no consistent relationship between in-person K-12 schooling and the spread of the virus. I understand that planning is complicated and things need to be thought through carefully. I've tried to be patient, but enough is enough. Let's make a plan and go with it. The constant zigzagging and pushing dates back is getting tiresome, and it has caused so many people to lose confidence in our school district. We don't need a plan that is perfect, and there is no plan that will make every teacher and parent 100% happy. But we can do much better than we're doing right now. Let's set a plan for November 11th that separates online from in-person and go with it. Please stop pushing back the middle school dates. David Carroll. Public comment number 23 to the Birmingham School Board. My name is Coach Bob, and I'm reaching out to vent a little on what is happening in our state and the inner cities within. It is really scary, and so is the amount of fear that is being put upon us. When the pandemic first started 9 months ago, I know some of the measures were appropriate because we did not know what we were dealing with, and we did not want to overwhelm the hospitals. That has taken its course, and we made it through. Yet now there are still screws being put to us by government and by the media. We are told cases are up, but that is because we are testing more than ever. At this point, very few people are being admitted into the hospital, and if someone has a health issue, they should stay home. But in the meantime, the cure is becoming worse than the illness. Kids are in depression. Parents are in depression. The kids must go back face to face. Why is it that if I pay $20,000 to $30,000 to go private face to face, there has not really been an issue? Yet in the public schools, we cannot seem to figure it out. Some districts are figuring it out, but ours has been nitpicking, and the bureaucracy is horrible. As parents, we have been saying that we want to help, and we have been trying to help in voicing our opinions. There was even a health committee created, and they recommended the kids go back. If we do not get the kids back soon, there will be more depression and more suicide. Therefore, we have to let them go back. I understand that it is not just the government or not just the school board that have to do everything. We need to band together for all these kids who are hurting and these parents who are hurting. To me, there are two key factors in making the right decisions for our community. We need to remain positive and have faith that it is all going to work out, because I believe that that energy will help us. Also, we need to help each other, because public education is the cornerstone of our community, and that is being ripped apart. Our whole society is being ripped apart by the fear. I honestly believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I want to see people smile and give people hugs. I want to continue to learn, laugh, and play, and so do my kids. My kids want to go to school and meet people and experience life, and that has been ripped from them. I am positive we are going to get through this. I hope this is a blip in time that does not last too much longer. Hopefully, we do not go to more extremes, such as another lockdown. Currently, it seems like other countries are in a really bad state because they are making the cure worse than the illness. I want to help represent that this is all going to work out, and the leaders within our community need to do the same. We need to agree on what we can do to move us forward further along, and please let me know how I can help in any possible
Trustee
way.
Hokumer, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, your time is up.
Okay, that was from Bob and Cheryl Schenefeld. And this is public comment number 24. It says, I support 100% virtual for high school until numbers come way back down. And that is from Kim Thorson. Dear Board of Education, we have had 2 kids in the BPS district for 13 years and have loved every minute of it. We have loved our schools and teachers, but today I'm deeply concerned for our community and school district. Another 60 days have passed since that initial vote against in-person school in August. I literally feel that nothing has been done. We have 0 leadership from the board. We have 0 transparency, so we are left to guess what is happening with our return to school. The board meeting a couple days ago left no one feeling happy or secure. Please tell me why you cannot model BPS after another school that has been doing well over the past 10 weeks. There are actually plenty to choose from. We should have gone to a hybrid model in September, and we should be moving towards full in-person. But now we are still 60 days behind, and our children are the ones who are suffering. Does anyone on the board find this acceptable? Zoom in a room is our option? Come on, this is a joke. Also, the board seems to be stuck on the 6 feet socially distancing issue. There is no state mandate saying we have to socially distance if we are wearing a mask. If the kids are in school with a mask, there is no socially distancing required. Does this board understand this? You are trying to make new rules that are not needed. It does not have to be this complicated. We lost 566 kids from our district, which is shocking. Every private school has wait lists still. People want their kids out of the district. I took my 8th grader out and he is going to school 5 days a week, full-time in person. He loves his new school. We will continue to lose more kids for next fall if changes aren't made quickly. Every single person I talk with is considering a new school for next year. I am asking for either full-time in-person or full-time virtual for all students ASAP. We need the choice. The hybrid plan will not work and the teachers do not want it. Please contact the other successful districts and figure it out. It has been almost 8 long months without school and it can't go on any longer. The board has had 60 days and now it's time to get back to school. Mental health of our kids must be a top priority and I don't know why the board does not see this. Kids and parents are suffering. Thank you, Michelle Hamlin. Public comment 26. My name is Blake Albritton, and I have 3 kids in the district, a 3rd grader at BCS, a 5th grader at West Maple, and a 7th grader at Berkshire. Our 3rd grader just started at BCS. We struggled with the decision to follow through on sending her, given all the unknowns going into this year. And ultimately, we believe that what we are experiencing right now is a short-term hardship, and making decisions with long-term, irreversible implications because of short-term hardships is directionally wrong. Several weeks ago, we had to choose again whether or not we wanted to participate in a hybrid learning plan or stick with learning virtually. For us, the choice was an easy one. We want to be in class, in person, full time as soon as possible. Where I have a huge issue right now is transportation to BCS. Our 8-year-old daughter gets on a bus alone in our neighborhood, rides alone to Berkshire, and then gets on a shuttle bus to BCS. One kid alone on a bus with the driver for the entirety of a route is a completely unacceptable situation on many levels, and this needs to be addressed immediately. A few days ago, the solution was that middle schoolers were going back to class on November 4th, and she would walk and ride with her brother, a 7th grader at Berkshire. For some reason that none of us can understand, that start date has been delayed seemingly indefinitely. Stop changing course and commit to getting our kids back to school. I watched Tuesday's meeting, and the debacle that unfolded was completely shameful and difficult to watch. We as parents expect so much more from the people we have elected to represent us in matters pertaining to the education of our children. It is apparent that in addition to having no idea what is happening daily to many families in this district, the members of this board have no clear plan to get kids back to school. This is very simple. You asked us all for feedback on what we want for our kids. An overwhelming majority of families in this district want our kids back in class full time. You need to move ahead with 2 objectives. Get those of us who want our kids to go back full time a pathway to return to school as soon as possible. And 2, have a virtual academy in place for those of us who do not want our kids in the classroom. Many of the previously heard comments covered the issues with the hybrid approach, and our option is no different. Hybrid is not working. Offer 2 options, in-person full-time or virtual full-time. Please start immediately on planning to implement these 2 pathways to learning with no more wasted time. We are out of patience and grace. Everyone on this planet knows we are in the middle of a pandemic, and these are unprecedented conditions. This can no longer be an excuse for inaction.
Trustee Hokumer?
Yes.
I'm sorry, your time is up. We have to move to the next public comment.
Public comment number 27 from Christine Glazier. I am writing this letter to strongly encourage the Birmingham public school system to return our children to school full-time, face-to-face, ASAP. Our school district has been behind the curve from all the surrounding school districts with returning to in-person learning and planning for the next steps. Up until this point, I've been understanding of the difficult position our school board has been in with regards to this decision, but the lack of progress in getting our middle and high schoolers back to the classroom has got to stop now. Our children's mental health and education are at risk. Thank you for your time and consideration. Christine Glazier, mother of 9th grader, Seaholm High School, and 6th grader, Derby Middle School. Public comment 28. Hi there. I'm writing to show my support for a full day of school for BPS students. My daughter is in first grade at Harlan Elementary, and I do firmly believe she would benefit greatly from more than 2.5 hours of FaceTime with her fabulous teacher. I know everyone on the administrative side of this is working so hard to make this work for everyone. I cannot imagine how difficult this is on a daily basis. Thank you for all you do. Sincerely, Shannon McQuiston. Public comment number 29. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Moyer, and I am an art teacher at Seaholm High School. I am also a parent in the district, as I have 3 children at Greenfield Elementary. Let me start by saying how much we love the Greenfield community and how impressed we are with the teachers and staff there. My kids have started hybrid, and although they are disappointed by the lack of interaction with their peers, we as adults see the efforts and excellent instruction taking place. We also understand the importance of safety and not having the students interact. Keeping students safe is the most important part of all this. Being a teacher at the high school level, I do not see how we can maintain any semblance of safety that is being crafted at the lower level. To begin, my daughter's kindergarten class has 7 students in her cohort. The older grades have 11 to 12. That means the teacher sees a total of 15 to 25 students per day, and for that matter, all semester. In the high school, classes are being set up for 16 at a time, but they switch between 5 classes. That means students and teachers are going to be exposed to too many students to maintain safety. What works at one level may not at a level that uses a completely different structure for the schedule. The teachers and students have worked extremely hard to make virtual learning work. It's safe and students are getting solid instruction. We all want to be back and be together, but it simply is not safe to do so. Families are preparing to not be with loved ones for the upcoming holidays, and yet we are preparing to put teachers in rooms with 120 people throughout the week who are then exposed to their whole schedule full of students and staff. I know there is pressure, but the decision should come from a place where the safety of students and staff is most important. Thank you for your time. Liz Moyer, art teacher, Seaholm High School. Public comment number 30. Hello, hello, Board of Education and administrators. We have 2 children at Derby Middle School. We want to start by saying that the teachers have done an amazing job in trying to teach in this platform. We realize it is as difficult to teach as it is to learn under these circumstances. We are extremely concerned about the amount of downtime the middle school students have. Half of their day is for asynchronous learning. Sometimes assignments are posted, and other times it is extended recess. Students in the same grades in other districts are receiving far more instruction and education each day than our students are. Every day they are falling further and further behind. Neighboring districts have found a way to safely return their students to school while also providing an online platform for students who choose to remain at home. Why is Birmingham so far behind? Why do the teaching models and start dates continue to change every other day? It is not fair to those students nor to their families. We would like to keep our kids in BPS schools, but we truly do need to consider academically what is in their best interest. At present, we feel BPS is falling very short in fulfilling the students' educational needs. Thank you, Stacy and Martin Belkin. This is public comment number 31. This is part of BPS's problem. Countless other districts are meeting the required state Safe Start protocols and doing what they can on the others. Birmingham is making the 6 feet a requirement when really the state has that only as strongly recommended. Other districts have been back full-time since the start of school. No 6 feet. Some classes have 21 kids, and they have not had any major case spikes even at the high school. At the high school, when they go to lunch, they all have to sit on the same side of the table. Not complicated. Here in Oakland County, if these kids can go to restaurants, bowling alleys, movie theaters, play sports, etc., then they can go to school. This is ridiculous. Sarah Flynn, Derby, parent. Public comment number 32. I first want to thank the teachers for their dedication to the children. My daughter's teachers have been nothing short of amazing at adapting to the challenges everyone is facing during the school day. That being said, the new hybrid model put in place is not enough for the kids. Parents have overwhelmingly indicated they wanted face-to-face learning, but 2.5 hours looking at a screen while in class is not what I consider an acceptable solution. The baby steps to get back to school are not enough. Currently, I have another child attending a private school in the area. The kids have been in school since August, and there have been no significant issues that have occurred due to COVID-19. The kids in the private school are continuing to get the full extent of their academic workload for the school year, and that does not appear to be the case for our district. What are they doing that we can't? Numerous experts have indicated the importance for kids to be in school and the detrimental effects of not being in school across many domains, including psychological, social, and falling behind in academics. Please reconsider a new plan that would allow for more learning in person. Respectfully, Katie Weibo. Public comment number 33 from Brooke Keith. I would like to voice my opinion about the fact that Birmingham schools will be the only district in the state that is not going to be full-time in person by the end of the year. I know so many schools that are going full-time and making it work. With masks and hand washing alone with other protocol, I feel that our kids need to be back full-time for their well-being and education. My daughter started hybrid in person last week, and she came home happier than I've seen her in months. Her energy and well-being have seemed to improve so much since going back. I also received an email from her teacher who expressed that being back at school was the happiest day she has had all year, to the point it seemed like a very emotional thing for her to be able to be back in person with her students. The new virtual portion of hybrid is less than satisfactory, as my 5th grader spends hardly any time on social studies, science, and health. She spends more time after coming home from her short 2.5 hours in person, playing with friends and bored because she has little live instruction during the remainder of her day. I worry how she will adapt to her first year in 6th grade next year because of the small amount of time she spent on her academics. I also have an 8th grader that I worry about in regards to her first year in high school next year. I appreciate your listening to my opinion on this very important subject and hope that changes can be made to the BPS plan. Let's get our kids back full time. Thanks, Brooke Keith. And public comment 34. I will not send my child back to school in a hybrid classroom. I will leave the district if I have to get my special ed child's needs met. This is utterly ridiculous. Please, 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 full-time face-to-face. My special needs child needs full-time in-person learning. We have lost so much valuable school time. Give those that want full-time face-to-face school the option. Enough is enough. Sarah Flynn. And that concludes my portion of public comment, and I believe I am passing it off to Nicole. No, Lori, sorry.
Up to me. So I'm going to take public comments 37 to 54. Amy, will you time me, please? Okay. Public comment number 37 from Shanda Aurini. Hi, I'm not sure exactly what's happening in the school district, but it has become a sad joke. Please look at science, look at the CDC recommendations, look at the surrounding public and private schools that have successfully returned to in-person learning, and make a plan, set a date for our kids to get back to school full day in person as soon as possible. Our children, our families, and teachers are suffering. Enough is enough. Thank you, Shanda Aurini. Public comment number 38 from Jill Lasky. Good morning. I'm writing to voice my family's opinion and wishes. I have a freshman and a junior at Seaholm. We are new to the district this year. They are very eager to get to class for in-person learning. They are struggling in the virtual setting in many ways. Most disturbing is the disconnect to their peers. Please vote for a return to full-time face-to-face learning. The social interaction is paramount to health and well-being of those adolescents. Thank you, Jill Lasky. Public comment number 39 from Kathleen Hansen. I would like my opinion to be heard for this special meeting and for the school board today. I want my son to be in school, in-person school, starting December 1st. If Novi, West Bloomfield, and the International Academy and others can have high school kids in person. Why can't Birmingham? We pay lots of taxes for school. It's time for the schools to start earning the money now. Start showing leadership instead of fear. Kathleen Hansen. Public comment number 40 from Betty Gouchot. Hi, I am writing to ask the board to please consider full-time or hybrid in-person education for all grades. If hybrid is implemented, please give live streaming at the home educational piece. I have heard that the in-person would involve kids sitting on their laptops in class with headphones. Is this true? If so, this is unacceptable. What are we doing to our kids emotionally? It is not healthy emotionally or physically to have the laptops and the headphones emitting EMF radiation for hours and hours each day. How are public and private schools throughout our community and throughout our state successfully teaching in person, but BPS hasn't been able to do so? How do other districts figure out how to navigate staffing and technology to make it work? How is it that other public schools that receive $8,000 to $8,500 per student at private faith-based schools that receive less than $7,000 per student are able to staff and set up technology to teach in person and e-learners where BPS can't with $12,500 per student? A realtor told me that she is getting tons of requests for Bloomfield Hills over Birmingham due to the lack of in-person schooling in BPS. This is destroying our district and the value of our homes. Sadly, I had to pull my daughter out of the school that she loved as a fifth grader because she did not thrive in online learning. She became bored, lost interest, and even lost her spark. She is very happy to be in person full-time since August 24th. The kids, sixth grade and up, wear masks inside, and K through 5 wear them in common areas and when working in close groups. Desks are not 6 feet apart. Parents fill out a COVID survey every morning and frequent touch spaces that are wiped down throughout the day. 0 cases in 9 weeks. There have been a very low number of COVID cases under the age of 18 and 0 deaths related to school. She cites a website. There are more flu deaths in students than in COVID, and even in adults. The death rates have plummeted due to weakening of the virus and a better understanding of treatment. It is time to return to school. Education and teachers are essential. Students, parents, and I am sure that most teachers are out in the community weekly for groceries, appointments, even eating out and going to the gym. Many students have returned to sports as well. There is no reason that schools can't open with COVID questionnaires, wiping down high-touch surfaces. Even students could wipe down their own desks after class, and reasonable social distancing when able, and reasonable mask wearing when distancing can't be maintained. The cure cannot be...
Lori, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you. Public comment number 41 from Chrissy Wicks. Hello, time is slipping away. Our districts are in school. Why is BPS dropping the ball? It has taken so long and there is still not a definitive plan in place. We live in a good district and it seems as though the district does not have our best interest at heart. My 3 children want to be in school in person full day. I hope the board will communicate what their plan is for providing this option for families like mine who want this and need this. Respectfully, Chrissy Wicks. Public comment number 42. This is from Lauren Kirsch-Carr. Dear Birmingham Board of Education members, I write as a concerned parent of a Berkshire student, 7th grade, and a Groves junior about the lack of clarity and inability for the board to make clear decisions and carry them out. Last week, the 2 middle school principals presented a reasonable plan for a return to hybrid learning with a live streaming option. I was actually quite pleased and impressed with this plan, especially the live streaming option for virtual students and the ending of asynchronous learning. We were asked to make a decision by Wednesday, October 21st. We spoke with our 7th grader, gave him the options and told him what we thought were the pros and cons of each option and asked him what he thought about it. He came back to us with a very thoughtful choice to remain virtual because he doesn't want to get sick or expose his father who has a serious underlying health condition to any potential risks. We were proud of the thought that he put it into this decision and know that some of his reasoning skills had been honed by the very fine teachers that he has had over the past 8 years. We are also relieved that the decision has been made and that we only faced one more decision for our Grove student in the coming months. And then on Tuesday, the BOE decided to blow that plan up and force our family into a new decision. My 7th grader now believes that he wants to go hybrid because he doesn't want to lose the teachers that he already has and has connected with to over the last 8 weeks, even knowing that he could get sick and bring this virus home. You have put families in an impossible situation by asking us to make a decision and then telling us that somehow our decisions are no longer matter because you've changed your minds yet again. If you are truly worried about the mental health of our students and families, you would not be upending the decisions that families have made. I have no faith that you are capable anymore of making informed decisions and standing with them. It seems that you are too afraid of angering the most vocal parents and worried about losing students. Instead of being one of the premier districts in the state of Michigan, BPS is becoming a target of ridicule and a cautionary tale of how not to handle a pandemic. Please, for the sake of your exhausted central administration and building administrators and teachers and staff, make one decision about middle school and high school that you can stick with, knowing, of course, that COVID cases continue to rise in Oakland County and that we will most likely be all virtual again soon. And please communicate any changes to families ASAP and give us the chance to change our decisions should you continue down this path for a BVA middle school. Thank you, the Reverend Lauren Kirschkar. I'm sorry I'm reading so incredibly fast, but I'm trying to get as much content in these letters as I can. Public comment number 43, Shannon O'Longlin. Good morning. I attended the Board of Education meeting Tuesday night. I have been closely following the developments of BPS Return to Learning Plan since August. I have viewed or attended the meetings and have read the various materials, statistics, and presentations. I am writing to clearly state that I do not support the continued delays in return to in-person instruction to middle school and high school. I am strongly against any further delays beyond a December 1st start date for high school. I would much prefer that date to be November. I also do not support the delay for middle school that was decided on Tuesday. The BPS board and leadership has continually overthought and delayed the in-person instruction. It has been over 7 months since the pandemic closed school and nearly 3 months since BPS flipped and decided to start school virtually for everyone. I question why the will of the minority who want all virtual is outweighing the desires and the needs of the majority. We weighed our options for my sophomore daughter and we chose C-Home. I am daily questioning our decision for her since she has spent more time isolated at home than she has at C-Home. My husband and I know that she is not getting the education she deserves or the education we expected. While I think the board asks some better, more pointed questions this week, this process has been dragged out for weeks and weeks and at the expense of education, at the expense of our education of our children. I want full-time face-to-face instruction for my daughter and nothing less. I want a timeline for when that will happen. And once that timeline is presented, I expect BPS to stick to this plan as opposed to delaying when conditions do not require delay. I am weary of the constant reference to what teachers are willing to teach in person. This is their job. Short of medical reasons, working in person should be required. These are the questions I want answered. Number 1, what is the long-term plan for in-person instruction? Hybrid or full-time? Is our district supporting keeping kids virtual and in at home for 1 year or more? The question needs to be addressed and not put off. Parents and students have the right to know that we can take action and make the plans of the district that doesn't intend to get back to face-to-face in 2020 or 2021. Question 2, for high school, Please provide what parents and staff who were surveyed to determine that in-person exams cannot be allowed for the first trimester for high school students. I would really like to know who is making these decisions without parent or taxpayer input. I spoke with one of my daughter's teachers during the conferences, and that teacher noted that teachers had asked for in-person exams, and the administration told them no, and then they said that they would reconsider. Question number 3, why high school parents haven't been surveyed in November?
Lori, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you. Public comment number 44. This is from Shannon O'Longman again. Oh, I'm sorry. It was a continuation, so I need to move on. This is public comment number 45, Dana K. Glenser. Good morning, BPS School Board. I am writing to you to express my sincere concerns for the children of this district not going back to school as soon as possible for full day in-person face-to-face learning. I have been quiet for some time as I wanted to give BPS an opportunity to appropriately address the needs of the students while balancing the safety of the teachers and students. I am not an educator, nor am I an administrator, but simply a working parent who fears for the mental health and education of my children. I say that from someone who has 2 children in the district who over the years have had extreme anxiety and in which we have been able to effectively manage those issues with professional assistance. I know many children may not have access to professional assistance. Many kids of this district are at an emotional breaking point, my kids included. Days of not being able to turn in homework as the link does not work or is glitchy, days of not being able to access a Zoom class as the link does not work for some reason, days of trying to get a hold of the help desk to try to address these issues, but they are understaffed and it takes way too long to get assistance, that they call you back hours later. This takes a toll, as well as sitting in front of a computer for 6 or plus hours a day for instruction, plus often 4+ hours of homework each night, also in front of a computer. While I'm concerned for the safety of my family and that of my immunocompromised 82-year-old mother, my worries are outweighed by the mental health and suffering of my children. These kids need to get back to school at least the majority of the week in a face-to-face scenario with masks and social distancing, of course. I don't care that it's half days or 2 to 3 full days, but when they are not in school, classes should be live streamed as they are today for high school, and then why are other districts able to accomplish this, like Troy, Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield, Holy Name, Brother Rice, University of Detroit? Don't these districts meet to discuss best practices with each other to figure out what is best for the community? I don't understand why the children of Birmingham School District are at such a disadvantage while others locally are able to move forward with a face-to-face learning. Please, please, please listen to the community and offer the virtual option for those that need and want to stay at home, and the face-to-face option with kids wearing masks and social distancing and the teacher wearing a mask and a face shield and staying at a protected space at their desk for those that need face-to-face instruction. Also, kids should not need to use Zoom if they're—
Lori, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you. Public comment number 46 from Robin Champagne. Dear Board, I implore you to get our kids back in school full-time, face-to-face. My son's mental health, depression, and anxiety is at an all-time high. His grades are suffering at a time when he is applying for colleges and scholarships. We have made it a priority to make sacrifices to be in the Birmingham school districts for 25 years because it was one of the best in the state. And while it served my now adult children well, I am beyond disappointed with the way that the district has handled this pandemic. Other districts are in school. The private schools have been operating in person since the beginning of the school. We should have been the leaders in this and not the followers. Thank you. Robin Champagne. Public comment number 47 from Jane LeBond. Good afternoon. My name is Jane LeBond, and I'm an English teacher at Seahome. First, it is important that you know that I desperately miss teaching and seeing my students in person. Aside from loving my content and being enthusiastic about teaching, I derive much joy from the incidental interactions that occur in a classroom. A quick conversation about non-school related stuff, a shared joke about something insane or mundane, noticing a student's current vibe and inquiring about it. These intangibles are difficult to replace in a remote learning classroom. Nevertheless, I persist in building relationships with my students via Zoom, Remind, email, and etc. That said, I have grave concerns about the proposed hybrid face-to-face schedule for the high school. I am attempting to attend to the high school students physically present in my classroom while simultaneously attending to those on Zoom creates more inequity into the classroom. Neither group of students will be receiving my best instruction. Per CDC guidelines, physically present students will not be allowed to work closely together on anything, nor will they be able to sit face-to-face with one another while having a seminar discussion. Meanwhile, the students who have Zoomed in could have difficulty understanding me because I'm wearing a mask or I'm speaking to the in-person students. Keeping all students virtual until there are safe options for us to return to a full face-to-face allows teachers to continue to provide excellent instruction and opportunities that are equitable for all. I implore you to delay a face-to-face hybrid reopening at the high school level until spring. Sincerely, Jane LeBond, English teacher, Seahome High School, Birmingham Public Schools. Public comment number 48 from Sherry Brown. To the Birmingham Board of Education. First, I want to say how I understand how difficult it is to make decisions that will make everyone happy. That being said, the biggest priority is to create a plan that will provide our students with education they deserve and that will address not only academics, but the lack of focus on how this pandemic has affected everyone's mental health. We need community, and right now, what we have is a bunch of isolated kids and families on two sides of an issue, but whose main focus is the same, safely educating our children. In regards to your decision today, I want to highlight some serious flaws in your return to school plan. Currently, our high schoolers have 65 minutes of each class every day. If you have them come to school for 3 classes, 50 minutes each, and then go home to an online for 2 or more, where they will probably get no teacher attention, that is decreasing their educational time. I am a professor who is currently using the live stream option to project myself into 3 different classrooms at the same time, and I have a teaching assistant in each one of these rooms. It is absolutely horrible. I do not feel that I am able to give proper instruction at all, and even with 2 people helping me and alerting me to questions, it is so difficult to focus on the students right in front of me, let alone those in other rooms. And I am dealing with graduate students, not high schoolers. Hybrid is not a good option. A totally online for those who need it and 100% in school for those who want it would facilitate total attention to the students. If you are worried about lunch, change the school day, run it from 7:30 to 1 so the kids can go home to eat. There are ways to figure this out. Other schools have done it. I believe Birmingham can come up with a way to safely and effectively educate our kids. And if you decide to move forward with a hybrid plan, the only way it will work and be partially effective and fair to both of the teachers and the students is to have a second adult in every room monitoring the Zoom feed for those at home. Otherwise, our children will be getting less than half of an education. We need to plan this out. Our kids and our teachers deserve a better plan than this. Sincerely, Sherry Brown. Public comment number 49 from David Jenslinger. Dear board members, after watching Tuesday night's board meeting, I have never felt so hopeless and discouraged for our Birmingham students. It has been 8 months and the school district still does not have a comprehensive plan to get our high school students back to to face-to-face full-time learning. If the surrounding districts and private schools are in the classroom, why isn't Birmingham? High school students in the classroom should be a priority number one. These are the students suffering from depression and anxiety. These are students who need the social aspects of their peers. These are students receiving a subpar education when they need it the most to become prepared for college. These are students who are struggling to become successful while forced to be on a computer for 6 hours of teaching and additional 2 hours of homework per night. BPS district parents have been begging for two options. One, full-time face-to-face and a live streaming option of those classrooms for those who choose not to or can't attend in person. Yet you continue to ignore what the community who elected you wants. I simply suggest a simple survey asking what high school parents want and publishing those results. Your decisions have led to a rumored 550 students leaving the district. That is over $7 million in district funding. These children won't ever come back and will only grow in numbers as parents are continuing to actively seek ways to get their kids in the classroom. The virus is not going away. The virus has zero risks to our students and is no time for more excuses or less lack of preparedness. No more embarrassing board meetings. It is time to put students' education first and let them in the classroom experience full-time now. Not December, now. David and Kelly Jenslinger, high school parents. Public comment number 50 from Carol Moore. Hi, my name is Carol Moore. I have two children that are within the school district. As I said the other night, I think we really need to focus on feasibility and social distancing at all time when the children are required to wear masks. It is not needed if you have a mask on. To social distance, it is not needed if you have a mask on. The state plan does not require it, and the CDC says do when feasible. You cannot deliver a quality education in a hybrid setting, and the reason that you are suggesting hybrid is because of social distancing. I want you guys to sit back and ask yourselves if we could distance 4 feet or as much as feasible as possible and seamlessly bring these children back to school full-time for the optimal educational opportunity. We would be thinking about that instead of something else. It is extra complication and havoc from trying to do a hybrid and online and live stream, etc. Return to learning worth all the hassles that is required. South Lyon Elementary is back full-time 4 days a week already. Their hybrid was more of a quick phase into a full-time. Their high school students are having a homecoming, as a matter of fact. The meeting the other night made me lose all confidence in the district, unfortunately, and this is ludicrous. Do not let perfect be the enemy of good. Yes, you are required to provide as safe an environment as feasible, but we are the parents. We are the ones who decide what is safe for our kids. Stature 380.10 in our school code clearly states that parents have the natural and fundamental right to the direct care and education of their children, and the district serves the parents. The district serves the parents' needs, period. Almost 80% of the parents are telling you what they need for their children. Let us make the decisions on their safety. Do the best you can, but don't create such a hindrance that you're not able to deliver any kind of quality education to these children. The hybrid will never deliver the bar of education that is expected from Birmingham Public Schools. The teachers don't want it. The parents don't want it. It is time to change course. Not everybody will be happy with this plan, but the majority will. You serve your constituents. We are the ones who voted you in. We are your constituents, not the teachers and not anybody else. You serve us. It's even in your bylaws. I know you are good people and that you are trying to do what is right, and I empathize with that. This must be hard, but you are making it incredibly harder. We are
Lori,
not equipped.
Lori, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay. Public comment number 51. This is from Caitlin Stahl. And she says, Board of Education, please get our kids back to school as soon as possible. November 5th was the original plan. Other districts have successfully taken the students back. Birmingham is wasting time to the detriment of our students and the future of our district. Please bring all students back for full-time face-to-face learning, elementary, middle school, and high school. Teachers would be able to focus on students in class or online. The joke of online, especially asynchronous classes, would finally be ended. This would also help reduce the double busing throughout the day when there is a shortage of bus drivers. All schools going back also will help mental health and wellness for everybody in the district. Teachers can focus on what they were hired to do, which is teach. They won't have to prepare for multiple scenarios of going back to school face-to-face, only to have the board change the plan again at the very last minute. Students would be able to look forward to face-to-face classes and not live in a state of constant frustration with subpar education and always changing plans. Parents and other adults across the district would be able to plan. The Birmingham School District has caused undue stress and frustration to all members of the BPS community, and it's time for this to end. It is also time to start protecting the district from further disruptions. 35 teachers and support staff have taken leaves of absence for various reasons. Over 500 students have left the district, with more sure to follow if things aren't fixed. People moving into the area with children are starting to look for homes in other districts. Future funding for BPS will drastically be decreased. Please take proactive steps to preserve the district known for an exceptionally quality of education and for our current and future students. At this time, the best course of action is to take students back to full-time across the district while offering a fully virtual platform for those who need it. Our students deserve a quality education, and our community deserves a board who makes better decisions based on the well-being of students and the district as a whole. Please bring our students back to school full-time as quickly as possible. Thank you, Caitlin Stahl. Public comment number 52. This is from Natalie Haji. To the Board of Education, the decision to start hybrid and then stop and then resume again has caused extreme frustration for parents, teachers, administrators, and especially for our children. Working parents and many parents of elementary students simply cannot get online, offline, lunch, or off to school and back 5 days a week. It has made this option unattainable for those who would prefer it. Every student should be receiving live instruction every hour of the school day, whether in person or not. Unless that is absolutely not possible, the asynchronous work must fill the entire amount of time that the child should be receiving for live instruction. This has not been the case at all. Why not have the in-person teacher teach all the students, all the subjects, all day? Those that choose the virtual option can live stream. Why is that not an option? Is it that we could not afford the cameras? Is it that the teachers cannot manage in-school students and virtual students simultaneously? Is it that the kids at home will feel badly that they are not in school? Sadly, 550 students have left our schools and about 70% want in-person learning. We should be able to do full days in the buildings at this point and make it work. Hybrid is not working with the half days. It destroys the schedule for the students and the teachers, and that has been made apparent and clear to the elementary level. Nobody wants to do Zoom in the room for middle school or high school. That was brought about at the final hour with no parents being surveyed. In closing, my teachers and administration at my schools have been amazing. I could highlight those points, but that is not what this letter is about. We are so worried about being in a specific phase so that we would be able to send our kids to school And we are actually at that in phase and still not sending our kids to school for full face-to-face instruction. Anxiety, depression, they kill too. These are real things, and we are just seeing the beginnings of this now, and it will continue as our kids are at home in their rooms, staring at a screen for hours upon hours on end. Kids are complaining about feeling nauseous, having headaches, fatigue, and restlessness. Clarkston, Bloomfield Hills, Lake Orion, Walled Lake, and most surrounding private schools are doing or slated to do full days and managing well. Close and quarantine when need to be. Masks up, hand sanitizers, social distance, and time to open up our schools with.
Lori, your time is up.
Thank you. Public comment number 53 from Sharon Goodman. I am very frustrated by the board's action. Can the board please accept the recommendations from the people that have spent hours doing the research and coming up with a plan so that we can move forward? Parents that want to send their kids in person should send them in person. Parents that want to keep their kids at home should keep their kids at home. The recommended plan satisfies all involved. Best regards, Shannon Goodman. Public comment number 55. This is from Todd Wicks. My 3 children want to go back to school in person full time. I hope the board will communicate what their plan is for providing this option for families who want it. Respectfully, Todd Wicks, Durham parent. Public comment number 50. Oh, I think I've overread my public comments. I do apologize. I'm on a roll.
I know you're doing well. So if you want to keep it going, you just let me know.
Trustee Young,
so I'm gonna
yours.
I'm gonna jump in at comment 56. Before I do, my boys are at home watching on the television, and so I just want to say goodnight to them because they're going to bed. So public comment number 56 from Susan Collins. Board of Education, thank you for the time that all of you have put into these meetings. We're in difficult times and these decisions are hard in the best of situations. Last summer, when I read the announcement about the hybrid program being canceled, I was devastated for the well-being of our children. Not just their education, but their well-being. Facebook and rumors are filled with fear, anger, intimidation, which seems to cloud everyone's judgment. We need to be looking at our county, our city, and facts, not our emotions. The note from the school board that suggested we are saving lives by keeping people home was wrong. We need to be clear here. The school board is not God. This is a pandemic. The hybrid plan you're suggesting gives both sides a choice. We as parents have to make the decision that's best for our families. Yes, the current situation is better than the spring, but it's still far from acceptable when you have kids sitting home by themselves all day long. I understand the need to have streaming as there are kids for various reasons. For various reasons, that need to stay home. There are kids who desperately need to go to school. As a district, we advertise our concern over the mental well-being of our students. We need to walk the talk. We are failing those students who need to be in school for their mental well-being. We're failing the kids who need to be in school because that's how they learn. We're failing our kids who just want to be normal. We're failing our kids who will compete with their peers for college slots, who went to other districts that provided for both online and in person. Yes, numbers are up around the state. Right now, those hotspots are in the UP and Grand Rapids. Look at Oakland County numbers. Look at other schools in our city that have been back to school for almost 2 months. Look at other public schools. It is working. It baffles me that the school supports sports and not in-person learning. I'm happy kids have the chance to participate so that some parts of their lives are normal and that they can do something they love. Although it is sad that this community sees the value of sports and not education. Please do not take sports away, but give education the same attention. Please look beyond fear and make the right decisions for all of our kids. We need to ensure all kids get the education they deserve. Thank you, Susan Collins. Next, from Kimberly Kennedy. Dear trustees, the proposed middle school model is being practiced at BCS now. I was surprised about the lack of understanding of how the middle school program and the technology involved will work. The system has been in place for 2 weeks for 3rd to 4th graders at BCS. Each board member should take the time to both participate via Zoom and in class to clear up a lot of the unknowns about how the technology works, how students are faring, and how the teachers will be managing teaching virtually and in seat simultaneously. With that, the board will be able to make an informed decision. Don't let the 20% minority drive decisions. In business, we often have to follow the 80-20 rule, but you can't make everyone happy, so you must do what's best for the majority. By not following that mantra, the board is now left spending 80% of their time and a problem, creating a virtual academy for middle school expressed by less than 20% of the people. I say less than because some families are choosing virtual simply because the half-day hybrid model doesn't work for them logistically. Elementary families currently in the virtual academy are not satisfied. The board should gather feedback from parents currently in virtual academy before trying to go down this path for middle school. Merging buses would put BCS 3rd graders on a bus with high schoolers. With the major issues surrounding getting kids back to school, I'm surprised that the board is entertaining the request to delay high school start time. Making adjustments to have a late start is taking away your time and resources that should be spent on getting our kids a proper education by being back in school full time. If you were to merge the middle school and high school buses, the buses would be more crowded than lunchrooms or classrooms. Also, please keep in mind that 8-year-old students, BCS 3rd graders, would then be on the bus with high schoolers and for a longer period of time. The exposure our elementary schools would get is unacceptable. With elementary age cases low and wearing masks full time now generally accepted, elementary kids need to go back and see it face to face full time. We're so focused on schedules that curriculum and class content is being lost. The content of the virtual and asynchronous classrooms is unacceptable. Kids are often done with their lessons in 10 minutes, and there's simply not enough school with the 2.5-hour hybrid virtual half-day portion, especially with having a 45-minute break scheduled in it. The number of cases for elementary are not high. Our neighboring city of Troy sent elementary school kids back to school full time. Masks work in every other aspects of our life. Please recall that when hybrid half-day plan was designed, people didn't think the kids would wear masks all day. The sentiment around masks has changed. Our plans for getting elementary students need to be back full time must also change. Please reconsider. I hope the suggestions for determining what is right for middle schoolers is helpful and look forward to learning when our elementary schools can come back to school in person. Regards, Kimberly Kennedy, mother of a Harlan 5th grader and BCS 3rd grader. Next, from Lynn Wilson. Good morning. I wanted to express the urgency of getting our children, middle school and high school, back to school full time, but not being taught by Zoom. I'd indicated that I want to send my children back to school, but if they are taught by Zoom, I'll keep them home for sure. Thanks for your consideration, Lynn Wilson. Next, from Karen Selke. To the Board of Education, I'm writing today to express my frustration with the current state of affairs within the Birmingham School District. Tuesday night's meeting would have been comical if it weren't for what's at stake, the education of our children. Tuesday's meeting was just one more example of hours spent talking in circles and making no progress. The board seems to be looking for things to worry about rather than looking to take action. Our children deserve better. Birmingham Public Schools has long been among the top districts in the state, highly sought after, well worth the investment. The current situation and lackluster planning from the BOE is jeopardizing not only our children's education, but the district's sterling reputation and soon to follow our property values. The exodus from BPS has already begun, and I don't believe it'll end soon. How is $7 million+ in funding already lost by the 566 students who have left the district not more of an impetus to get something done? So many months have been wasted talking and planning and watching the data and delaying that good weather is now gone, as well as any opportunity for utilizing outdoor spaces for education. Beyond that, we've likely missed the window before the second wave as the numbers climb once again. I can't help but worry that they'll only serve as an excuse for this BOE to take our middle and high school students home, or worse yet, move the entire district back to all virtual. As the parent of 3 children, I have 2 BPS students and 1 Marion student. My eldest, a junior at Marion, has been back at school since August without any issues. While their school does not look the same for her as it did a year ago, they're trying. They're putting forth their best effort to educate the students to the best of their ability alongside the pandemic in which we are all living. The same cannot be said for BPS. My 5th grade son finally attends school for 2.5 hours a day, then has a 2-hour break, then 50 minutes of virtual, followed by a 30-minute break, and the day is wrapped up with a UA class. How is this an effective means of educating our children? My 7th grade daughter is desperate to get back to school, but is now delayed. Hopefully fully to make the experience better for all, but I have little faith that this BOE will actually get her back in the building, as the middle school return has devolved into a "what are we voting on" disaster. Furthermore, it was made very clear early on during BOE hybrid discussions that families with students in different buildings across the district would at least be in the same cohorts. That's not the case, as my son is in the AM cohort at Bingham, and I was notified last week my daughter would be in the PM cohort at Berkshire. It seems keeping families together was just too hard, and alphabetical was the default. I respectfully request that you do better for our children. Please stop wasting time and take action. BPS is better than this. Show us and our children that the board is working for them, not against them. Sincerely, Karen Selke. Next is a comment from Andrea. To the BPS BOE, it's very concerning that parents are asked to make a commitment to a plan for middle school by 10/21, and the district sends an email announcing a special meeting to change the plan on the same date. I, for one, had already submitted a decision the day before based on the information provided by the district. Information is fast changing, but this is absolutely ridiculous. This is no way to implement a plan. The board and administration are clearly floundering and should hire help if they don't know what you're doing. All your missteps have a direct effect on students' education. Please, once a plan is laid out, stick to it. If children thrive on consistency, there's no hope here. From Andrea Dallatore. From Kristen Ward, please bring kids back to school for full days. My fourth grader is back in the afternoon for 2.5 hours and is so much happier seeing friends and her teachers. Is lunchtime what is really affecting the ability to be in person for full day? Everyone can pack a lunch and eat at their desks. I don't understand how other districts and private schools can figure this out, but BPS cannot. Talk to our neighboring districts that are in person more than 2.5 hours a day and do what they're doing. Please, and not sure why NWEI tests should occur right now, but it'll be interesting to compare results from students in school full-time versus virtual. Sadly, this will not help our mostly virtual students, but just underline the tragic missteps of this district. Send all schools back to school now and for more than 2.5 hours a day. Next is from Ben West. Dear BPS Board of Education, as the parents of 4 students in BPS, my wife and I are so grateful for all the incredible work teachers, administrators, and support staff are doing. We appreciate the long hours the school board has put in as well. Thank you for your attentiveness to this community. After watching the board meeting, we were surprised that some concerns related to your decision to move middle school virtual learners to a separate BVA weren't raised. To only recently provide parents detailed information on how virtual learning will be implemented and then propose an entirely different virtual learning plan a day before the commitment surveys are due is unreasonable. To completely disregard the families who have already committed to the previously proposed virtual setting and then try to rush implementation of a new BVA by November 11th is inconsiderate and haphazard. We believe it's incorrect to assume that all families choosing fully virtual would prefer an entirely separate BVA. We believe the suggestion to implement a BVA overlooks the social need for students to feel included in their home school. Our 6th grade daughter was excited to join Derby Middle School this year. Due to health concerns in our extended family, we've chosen virtual learning for our other children. We were relieved to see how Derby would be including virtual learners in the classroom via live streaming, but now we're being forced to weigh health risks against benefits of social inclusion. Ultimately, we're not convinced the quality of a separate BVA would be any better than live streaming. Obviously, each student's needs are different. Our 6th grader is thriving in the current setup, but as we've personally witnessed on the elementary school level, the teacher reshuffling has had mixed results. Our concern is that the separate middle school BVA would not only lack social identity, but would suffer from the effects of just needing to fill positions. As an administration pointed out, middle school teachers specialize in their subjects and aren't as easy to reassign. Won't they be teaching virtually or live streaming half the time in the hybrid model anyway? It could actually be more disruptive to shuffle teachers around in an effort to create a BVA than it would be to give teachers some time to get accustomed to engaging live streaming learners. Why not give the prior plan a chance, at least till January? That not only seems the most respectful to parents who've already committed to that plan, it also provides more flexibility in the event rising COVID cases force the district back to a fully virtual stage. There would still be consistency between students and teachers and an established routine to settle back into. Thank you for your careful consideration. Respectfully, Ben and Megan West. Next, from John Emmert. Dear Birmingham Board of Education, I will keep my comments brief and to the point. I found Tuesday's meeting to be professionally embarrassing and have lost whatever remaining confidence I had in the board, inclusive of all members. The lack of leadership and frankly coherence in Tuesday's meeting was incomprehensible. Please listen to your constituents who overwhelmingly voted for in-person schooling prior to the start of the year. Many other public districts and private schools in adjacent communities have resumed full-time in-person classes 5 days a week. Risks to school-age children are exceedingly low. The data is clear. Let's follow the science. We're okay with mitigation techniques like face masks, hand washing, plexiglass barriers, and keeping kids home if they have a hint of a symptom. Let's do this and get on with it. Hybrid proposals like having kids sit in a classroom but stare at Zoom or only half-day in-person classes are not an acceptable solution. Please don't go down that path. I urge you. For those that want to remain virtual, they should have that choice. But for those of us that prefer in-person school full-time, we should also have that choice. I firmly believe that the disruption you are propagating is doing more damage to our children than the virus, and you will have to carry that burden. That's on you. I urge you to read peer review assessments of the mental health impact these disruptions are having on the children and how other schools are successfully managing in-person learning. I was willing to grant you some leeway early on as these are unprecedented times, but now it's beyond comprehension. I will be enthusiastically voting in this election, and your decision now will weigh heavily on how I cast my vote in this election and every election henceforth in which a current incumbent is participating. We will not forget your choices and your votes on these important issues. Respectfully, John Emmert, BPS parent for students at BCS Derby and Seaholm. Another comment, the next comment is from Christy Hassett, Board of Education and Superintendent. The collective mental health of Birmingham Public Schools community is suffering. The lack of any definite plan to send high school students back to school, let alone full-time, is embarrassing. The fact that middle school and high school students don't have an approved return to school date causes additional stress and anxiety. Your lack of willingness to make a decision continues to make a horrendous situation worse. It has become apparent that meeting the educational needs of the majority of students and families is not the priority of the Board of Education. Many private and public schools surrounding BPS have been successfully in session face-to-face for weeks. Those districts that are beginning to return face-to-face have a plan and are sticking to it. How can you justify the lack of plan for BPS high school students? It has always been very clear that the recommendation of maintaining 6 feet of social distancing is just that, a recommendation, not a requirement. It shouldn't be that difficult to look at the examples of larger districts and implement those guidelines in BPS. Students need to be in school full-time and face-to-face. The virtual schooling is not working for most students. Stop confusing yourselves with the hybrid and allow students to have a full-time face-to-face education they deserve. Mike and Christy Hassett. Next is from Michelle Love. Birmingham Board of Education. Once again, I'm writing to urge the board to approve in-person learning at all levels in Birmingham schools, ideally full-time. It's working in other districts and the private schools. There's no reason Birmingham can't do the same. If there is a reason, you owe it to the community to tell us why. It has become increasingly obvious that the board is looking for reasons not to return to school. The district is making a choice to fail its families, and we have a right to know why. It's not as complex as you're making it. Copy and paste the formula from any one of the surrounding districts. Thank you, Michelle Love. Next, from Cheryl Schenfeld. Dear BOE, please tell us why we are making this so complicated. In other districts and private schools have been back to person since day one. Why isn't BPS a leader? No issues that have been big enough for anyone to hear about have come out as other schools have been back for weeks and weeks. Can someone in the district and on this board please just copy their plan and offer full-time in-person for those that want it and full-time virtual for those that want it? If you go back to school, you wear a mask and they supposedly work, then you don't need to socially distance, correct? That seems to be an issue holding our district back, trying to figure it out, and it's in fact not mandated or necessary for us to start back face-to-face. The private schools have gone back with masks and not the focus of social distancing. We need the teachers to be allowed to do what they love and teach kids and not have kids on computers in classrooms so the kids can interact with the teacher and one another. If a family chooses only face-to-face, then the child should not have to be on a computer at the school if the idea is to be face-to-face. If a child or family member is high risk or the family chooses not to come to school, then the child would be virtual and it would include being on a computer at home. We don't need to get into the hybrid debates or try to figure anything out if we just offer 2 options, face-to-face full-time or virtual on a computer at home full-time. Make it simple, stop overcomplicating it, and give parents the choice on what is best for their families. We cannot delay anymore. We have to get kids back to school and off computers and allow them to socialize and interact as human beings. We have to allow parents to make a choice for their own families. Fear cannot keep us paralyzed. Only looking at one issue is creating more deaths and despair. So in so many other areas of life, and it has to change. Please help our community get back on its feet, overcome the fear, and move forward with life and living. It matters more to kids, parents, and families than we can possibly comprehend. The district already lost over 500 students to other schools. This should be a wake-up call. It's time to take action. Thank you for taking our community and our families and our children's complete well-being into consideration and getting us back to school without computers and with full-time option. Trying to avoid something that cannot be the only focus anymore. We now have depression and anxiety issues that exist in our community and have to be addressed. We cannot wait another day. The time to open the schools and live is now. Thank you for listening, Cheryl Scheinfeld. From Luke Joseph. I'd like to know the answers to these questions. 1, why did BCS submit their own plan? What is it? Why can't we all use it? 2, need to know the plan for face-to-face 100% full-time. 3, why do other school districts go back face-to-face and we don't? 80% of the parents want to go back to school. Why are we bending backward for the 20% who don't? Please read and answer my questions. Luke Joseph. Next from Andrea Belen. To the board, I know these are tough, unprecedented times, but you are elected to represent our school district and do what's best for our children. This means making sure they get a good education safely. You've had over 6 months to come up with a plan. The elementary is doing as well as they can be. My son loves going to school, wishes he could stay all day. My daughter, who's at Derby, was so excited to start November 4th. You had to push the middle school up to November 4th to start a new marking period. Why are you now pushing it back another week? Does not make sense. Get your acts together and get the kids in school for at least a half day. It's embarrassing that this is Birmingham. Be innovative, be a leader. Don't wait for other districts and follow. Do what's best for our district. Enough being wishy-washy. Work together, come up with a plan, stick with it. It's so frustrating. This all should have been done already. I'm so disappointed. You should keep November and get your stuff done before that deadline. It's not the kids' fault and you're punishing them. Enough is enough. Sincerely, a disappointed parent, Andrea Belen. Next is from Lynn Constantin. Dear Board of Education trustees, please reconsider creating a virtual academy for virtual students. We've opted for virtual learning from our 6th grader for Berkshire from the start. We're lucky. She's thriving emotionally and has even made a handful of friends virtually. I think that most parents concede some type of loss academically during this period, despite the heroic efforts of teachers and staff. I'm doing my best to keep my daughter on top of her assignments. There has to be some give and take along with a positive attitude modeled for the kids, and that's what we're trying to do. However, despite all the chaos of quarantine, school closing, and other shuffling around due to the pandemic, many students have found their groove in virtual learning. My daughter's gotten to know her teachers, learned how to handle virtual learning in her classrooms, made new friends, and adapted. To take all that away from her now, mid-semester, and ask her to adapt once again to new teachers, new classes, new students, and new protocols is taking cruel advantage of the resilience she's worked so hard to achieve. If in-person classes will be live streamed anyway, couldn't virtual students stream in on smartboards as originally planned? I understand that many teachers are not comfortable returning to in-person teaching, and I applaud the Birmingham schools for listening to their concerns. Perhaps a better use of their expertise would be for them to act as parapros or liaisons virtually for students. I'm certain there are creative solutions to this problem without having to tear children from their routines once again. Please reconsider and abandon the virtual academy. Sincerely, Lynn Constantin. Next is from Amber Hayes. Trustees, our children need you. We need you to vote and make our district return to school for face-to-face learning. Words cannot begin to express how extremely disappointed I am in how the education has been handled for our students this year. I feel the district and the BOE have provided nothing but empty promises and have not followed through with what needs to be done to ensure a quality education for our students. With the current virtual plan, my daughter frequently is excused from her live classes early or may receive only 10 minutes of instruction from her teachers during synchronous learning time. During her synchronous learning time, she's watched movies and YouTube videos. She completes asynchronous work in 5 to 10 minutes and is left with nothing to do for 40 minutes. This is not a school day. It's not an education. I'm asking that the BOE begin to act like leaders in the community and start to advocate for our children and their education. For the life of me, I can't understand why such attention is being given to creating a perfect virtual academy for those that do not want to return to school when it was reported that 80% of the parents want to return to face-to-face learning during the last board meeting. I truly feel that we're being told there would be a return to in-person learning, only for the dates to be pushed back, simply to delay or prevent parents from pursuing private school options. This is so disappointing. We need you to provide full-time face-to-face learning for our children. Thank you, Amber Moradini. Next comment comes from Leslie Sajabek. 1, would it be possible to have the results of the middle school survey released to the public prior to the board meeting? I'd like to know the number of kids signed up for hybrid in person versus online. 2, I signed up my kids to be virtual from the beginning. The online school so far this year has been going well. I was excited to see that my middle school student would be able to keep her classes and teachers through online streaming when the hybrid begins. Now I hear that is changing and she'll have to switch to a virtual academy to stay online. Not happy about that. Feedback from parents who have elementary school age kids that stayed online said it was much harder for their kids to transition to new teachers, and the class sizes are much larger online, and it is not as good as the online school had been before the hybrid started. I'd prefer the online school continue as is till the end of the semester. If that isn't an option, then I'd strongly prefer the online streaming option with their current teachers and classes versus starting a virtual academy in the middle of a semester. The company I work for has told me to work from home until July 2021 due to current risk factors. I can't understand what the rush is to put so many kids and teachers in an increasingly risky situation by going back too soon. Sincerely concerned parent of 2 BPS students, 1 middle school, 1 high school. Leslie Satchabak. Next is from Beth Hill. Dear BPS Board of Education and Administration, I'm writing to you for 2 reasons. First, we want to share our family's support of Dr. Omar Hakim and Mr. Jason Hill's leadership at BCS and request the BCS plan continue as is. They have seamlessly transitioned the 3-4 classes to adapt to this half-day cohort schedule, as well as successfully integrated the all virtual students. It's working. Further changes would be disruptive and unnecessary. Their leadership at BCS has been outstanding, and they should be commended for their excellent communication with families, which is helpful and appreciated. With regard to comments about changing plans and possible actions related to COVID-19 learning plan, we are curious as to why there has been no formal, professionally conducted so the data is valid survey of district parents. Understanding there are varying views on the right thing to do to ensure the safety and health of our children, teachers and school staff, as well as the best way to educate children during a pandemic, having accurate data around families' preference in the district versus anecdotal and ad hoc opinions would provide the board and administration with the ability to make informed and data-driven decisions. That information, along with the other expert opinions you may rely on, would probably be helpful to you. Regards, Beth Hill. That concludes public comment for the special session on 10/22/20.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Okay, and thank you to the community for your input and feedback. Trustees, next on the agenda, other? Any comments, questions?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. I was one of the nay votes for tonight, and I just wanted to explain my nay vote. Our staff is under extreme pressure right now. And so when I originally voted to return on November 11th on Tuesday was to allow them some additional time because arranging schedules is a huge undertaking, it's a huge lift. And so I wanted to allow our staff time to be able to make the necessary changes that they had to make. I also felt like creating a virtual academy would allow for a better performance or better educational opportunity for the students who would be participating in the virtual academy. It also would allow us to pivot more quickly by having a virtual academy versus live streaming. Again, I was one of the board members who had an opportunity to participate in the simulation at the school the other day, live streaming, and I did not feel that it was a viable option and that it was not what parents thought it would be, having their children participate in a live streaming. So that was the reason for my nay vote tonight. I will add to that too, that it is important for me to have students go back to school face-to-face full-time as soon as possible. I want the community to know that I have a middle schooler who is eager to get back to school face-to-face, in person. Everyone in my inner circle, I was getting text messages during this meeting. Everyone wants to be back in school full-time, face-to-face. And so that is a goal for me. I think it's what's in the best interest of students, as long as it can be done safely. And I'm hoping that when our interim superintendent comes on board, that we will make this a top priority for him.
Thank you, Trustee McKinney. Trustees, anything else before we adjourn? Oh, yeah, please.
Kim, the only other thing is, do you just want to tell people the name of our incoming interim superintendent again, and like where, I know he was most recently in South Lyon, I think, but.
Oh, Rachel, it almost looked like you were going to say something.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, our incoming interim superintendent is Dr. George Heitch. I don't want to misspeak. Anne, we worked with Anne, and she is going to do a formal communication out to the community. She talked to Dr. Heitch today and worked on his bio. I do know that he was the existing superintendent in Farmington. He then retired, and most recently was acting as interim superintendent for South Lyon. I'm hoping that's correct. And again, he's winding down a few things. He has graciously accepted our position, and will be starting officially on Wednesday, the 28th. Wednesday, the 28th, 2020. So we look forward to, we will get a bio out, on him, as well as we look forward to welcoming him on Wednesday. Sorry, I don't know more.
And then I just wanted to let the community know that Trustee Rass had to leave a little bit early. She apologizes. She wanted to stay for the entire meeting if possible, but she did have to leave, and she just wanted to let everyone know that she was here for the majority.
Yes. Okay, trustees, anything else? Thank you again for another long night, and for hanging in there for me. Okay, if nothing else, then we are adjourned. Thank you, 7:48, Joan. Thanks again for Central Admin for hanging in there, and everyone have a good evening. Good night.